In 1936, big-time silent movie actor John Bowers took a boat out to the shores of Santa Catalina to visit his old friend, Henry Hathaway. Hathaway was directing a film, Souls at Sea, and Bowers was looking to get a part in the film. Upon discovering that the film had already been completely cast, the 50-year-old actor left and was later found washed up on the beach in Santa Monica, dead. Bowers' life and death became a major influence for a film that released the following year in 1937. By some strange domino effect, would eventually win modern-day actor Bradley Cooper not 1, but 2 Grammys. Bowers was far from being the only actor to inspire this film, which was billed as a behind-the-scenes look at the glitz, glamour, and greasy underbelly of Hollywood. The marriage of actors Barbara Stanwyck and Frank Fay is said to have been a key influence for the story. The film also includes nods to several major players of the era, with the protagonist, played by Janet Gaynor, doing impressions of Greta Garbo, Katharine Hepburn, and Mae West as she struggles to work her way up the acting ladder. Yes, the names, impressions, and stories are all ripped from the Hollywood headlines. All this in a film directed by William A. Wellman, a former military pirate and a man who hated acting so much that he immediately sought out behind-the-scenes work in the industry instead. Wellman, along with Robert Carson, Dorothy Parker, and Alan Campbell, wrote the script, with additional lines written by Bud Schulbger and Ring Lardner Jr. Most fucking 1930s ass names you've ever heard. The film was met with rave reviews and earned $2.37 million in the box office, double its budget of $1.17 million. That was impressive in 1937, I swear. In a contemporary review, Frank S. Nugent of the New York Times called the film, quote, good entertainment by any standard, including the artistic, and convincing proof that Hollywood need not travel to Ruritania for its plots. There is drama aplenty in its own backyard. Hollywood took that to heart and has been digging around in its own backyard ever since, remaking the very same film every 20 to 50 years in the process. With every remake, the film drifted further away from its Hollywood focus and more on the ever-exciting music industry. Julie Garland starred in the 1954 remake, Barbra Streisand in the 1976 remake, and of course, Cradley Booper and Lady Gaga in the most recent remake in 2018. Wellman and his crew had truly put together a film that made the audiences and the industry say, I just wanted to take another look at you. That's right, Blockbuster Summer is all about the movies this week as we talk A Star is Born on Cover Me.
Before you lies the most glamorous city on earth, Hollywood, California. A city where men and women skyrocket to fame or plunge to oblivion. What happened?
Yes, a star is born, and in its splendor and deep emotional fire, in its shining beauty and wonderful heart, a new era in motion picture achievement is also born. You'll see it in the richness and magnificence so lavishly poured
in the world of rock music. John Norman Howard was once the best, but he was burning out.
until he met.
No, I can't do that.
Here we go.
It's not funny. Jack.
Look at me.
All you gotta do is trust me. That's all you gotta do.
That's right, it's Cover Me, the only podcast that compares famous films to their many remakes to find out which one had nothing to fucking say. I'm your host, as always, The Snake, joined by my slipping co-host.
Oh! Alex Wildenberger. I almost fell over there. That was a close one.
That's a close one, Alex. You haven't slipped yet, unlike Norman Bain, am I right?
Sorry, I was a little off balance there for a second.
That's okay. We know this about you. You're a klutz.
That Norman Maine, though, he's slipping, eh?
The tense is wrong. You've slipped. Alex, we are talking ambitious project today, but first, how are you? How you doing?
Oh, yeah, I'm doing, how am I doing? Good, I think? Yeah.
Doing good?
I'm feeling all right.
Feeling good?
We're doubling up. We're doubling up
yeah,
today.
It's a double record for us, so if we sound exhausted...
I think I've still got some energy in the tank.
I think I'm gassed up to talk about this. Alex, we're doing something strange here, something we've never done before.
Yeah, we talked about movies
before.
Never four movies.
Never four movies, the same movie, but applying the Cover Me method, as it were.
The method of I feel like we won't be able to approach this in the same way because there's just so much to talk about the differences. So many.
We do have to go broad strokes, but folks, you're going to get the same kind of thing. We're going to talk about the original, what it's all about, compare it to the next 3 versions that come after it, break it down into a best, worst, weirdest, and
then there's just going to be one other one left over.
yeah, and the one that is awarded nothing, but at least doesn't get worse. Good for that one. Yes, Alex, A Star Is Born. Did you know when the A Star Is Born came? The most recent remake is obviously the one we probably are most familiar with because we were alive when it was being, advertised and in theaters. Were you aware at the time that it was a remake?
I think I learned. I didn't know before, but like when the 2018 version was in sort of the news and in the marketing mind, whatever, general public mindset, the zeitgeist. That's what we call it. That was part of the like facts about it. It was like, actually, it's based on an older film, and like there's an old version, but there's an even older version, and there's an even older,
Yeah.
So like that was part of it, and it was just like a trivia bit to learn at the time. And now I've seen all the movies.
Seen them all. And what's your general opinion of A Star Is Born, just conceptually? Does this thing have legs, Alex?
I think, I don't know. I don't know. I think it might not last. No, it's so interesting to see how it changes over almost a century.
I agree. Yeah, it's
and I have difficulty thinking of it in like a different context, especially for old movies. I see these old movies. I'm like, did I enjoy it? I don't know, but I was fascinated like the whole time.
Yeah.
Just because they're like, well, see here, and like, how do you do? All that stuff.
It's so much of that like transatlantic accent.
Yeah.
There's so much like stage play being still like the basis of filmmaking.
Yeah.
Is like record a stage play. There's 2 things that are very fascinating to see here in broad strokes as we go through these films. One is the advancement of technology.
Yeah.
And 2 is the advancement of how we understand like mental illness.
Yeah, technology, mental illness. I mean, popular culture as a concept. The relationship between art and the consumer of that art or the observer of that art, I think, plays a part a little bit into it, particularly in the latest one, because that is
for sure. Yeah, you're talking. Yeah, even about like because like in the 30s and 50s, it's like Hollywood and acting is. Like there's traveling musicians and shit, but they're not really like the thing of legends.
Right.
Like they will become like, the 60s once the Beatles take off is really, and like Elvis before that is really when we start seeing more of that.
So the first 2, like pop music was barely like compared to what we think of as pop music now, like didn't exist.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting to see the evolution of the film and over time.
Yeah, it's like right around the time the first remake comes out is because you get Frank Sinatra on the scene. That's when ththings start to shift.
Right, and I guess it's not like they didn't have like popular music singers and there were like jazz records and stuff, but it wasn't the same.
Yeah, because like musicians didn't have a home really in the same way that actors do. Like Hollywood, Tinseltown is like this location, whereas musicians could kind of be from anywhere.
Yeah, and I remember, I think it was like an interview with like Paul McCartney, I think. And he was talking about the breakup of the Beatles. And he was like, at the time, we didn't really know. Because like for most people, the thing you do after the band breaks up is like you get a desk job, right? Like you go back to being a regular person. Like there's no like lifelong pop stars. Or maybe they are, but it's not established yet, right? Like maybe there's Elvis, but people weren't really sure about Elvis,
Right.
Like, was he done or not? So,
yeah, arguably not the longest life on Elvis either.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's interesting to think of it from that perspective. And obviously, we're very music focused here, so it's probably what we're going to talk about most.
Yeah, so that was, I think, the craziest thing for me, cracking open into the first A Star Is Born, the original Star Is Born. Because I didn't really like hit any research. I was like, okay, yeah, it's about a famous musician and an upcoming musician. Yeah. Immediately incorrect. I was like, what the fuck? This isn't about music?
Yeah. No music, no songs. I mean, there's like score, but like no songs in the first one. The Janet Gaynor, Frederick March.
Yeah.
Original from 1937.
1937. It also from the Technicolor.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's go over the major plot points, I guess, because a lot of them are going to come up again, but not all of them.
Yeah, so basic woman with a dream
Yeah.
to act. She
Goes
goes
to-
off to the big city.
Yeah.
She encounters through a meet cute a big time actor,
Yeah.
kind of at the peak of his career, Norman Maine.
Who's like kind of immediately smitten with her.
It's a real love at first sight kind of story.
Yeah.
And then he gets her. He's like her link into the industry. He gets her in.
Yeah. He in some way encourages her to do a thing
Mm-hmm.
that gets her in. In the original, she kind of, she gets her like screen test, and then she has to do like a bunch of extra work and stuff like that.
Yeah, in the original, it's a lot like slower for her to get where she's going.
Yeah, for sure. And then, at least in the older ones, it happens around the halfway point. But like, you get this moment of like, she finally gets her big break, and then suddenly everyone's talking about her.
Yeah.
And it's huge, and they sort of, that's like, you see they're falling in love throughout this. They get married.
They get married.
They continue to, for a little while, have their fairy tale existence.
Yeah, well, a key point is that in every version, Norman Maine or the fucking Norman Howard or Jackson Maine is an alcoholic.
Yes. True.
And a key point is that through their relationship, he's actually able to stop drinking.
At least for a while.
At least for a while, exactly. So yeah, you're right. We do have this brief moment where everything seems like they're going to be okay, but her star continues to rise as his star begins to plummet, which then sets him on a spiral that ends in suicide.
Yeah, which I didn't know about the suicide part. So like watching the first movie, we're doing spoilers in this, by the way.
Oh yeah, if you haven't seen it, like it's gonna be spoiler city.
Like watching the end where I kind of like started, the film builds up to it, right? You can see Norman Maine kind of decide and then do this, like walk into the ocean, like drop his house coat on the beach and just like walk into the ocean. I'm like, wait, is this a suicide story? And then he just like never comes back.
Never.
And you see his house coat get washed out to sea when the tide comes in.
Such a stark shot in the original.
Yeah.
It's so like, fuck. And you're right. You're like, wait a second.
Like, wait, this is a suicide? Yeah.
Yeah, because I wasn't clear. I assumed in the new one, I thought he just died from like complications with alcohol. I thought it was just gonna be
something.
or something. Then,
or like overdose. I don't know, but like no.
He walks into the ocean.
Yeah.
And in each film, this is like an important thing to note. It's done as an act of love for his
that's
partner.
the idea. Particularly in the first one, and I guess the first two. It's like in the first one, she's like, "Oh no, I need to stop being a star myself. We need to get out of town," kind of thing.
Yeah, she's like, "I'm going to start taking care of him," and then he always like overhears it.
He overhears it and is like, "I know what I'm going to do about this because I don't want to hold her back."
Exactly.
So that's kind of the general plot with a few details from the original. But what else happens in the original? It starts on a farm. That doesn't come back. It starts
on a farm. So we got a lot of characters kind of introduced in the first scene that are never going to be seen. Well, maybe like the latest version.
The grandmother comes back right at the end.
Yeah, the grandma
I should mention, we talked about the plot in the original one, like none of them end with the suicide. They show the fallout, there's a funeral usually, or
because it is called A Star Is Born, right? So it's about the rise of Esther Blodgett is her original name. She's called Allie in the newest version.
Esther Victoria Blodgett,
and she typically ends up going under the stage name of Vicky Lester. So she's got this grandma here. So basically, she's like reading a magazine at the start, and her family's like, "You fucking loser! You're never gonna go to Hollywood."
Yeah, she's like, I will be a star," or whatever she says.
I think that's actually like word for word. And then her grandma rolls up and she's like, "Listen, all I got money for now is for my funeral."
Yeah,
she's like,
so like I've been saving, but I don't need it.
Yeah, she's like, "I used to be a lot hotter and smarter and cooler than you, honestly." She's like kind of mean.
Yeah. But she gives her the money. She gives her money so she can get to California. She can go to Hollywood and find her big break kind of thing.
Yeah.
She says a line. Okay, I wrote it down because I thought it was going to come back, and it never does. She
Okay, what's the
says,
line?
"For every dream of yours you make come true, you'll pay the price in heartbreak." And I was like, I'll bet you that's the theme of all these movies, and someone's going to say it in all of them. Only this one.
Only this one.
Only the first one.
And it does clearly paint the heartbreak, but like, yeah, they never come back to that line.
Yeah.
Because they also never really have a grandma character again.
That's true. Even though some characters are repeated. For example, her goofy friend Danny. Danny's the guy she meets when she's in Hollywood, who's
Right.
like, he's a director himself, and he's got kind of trying to help her, but he doesn't have like power in the industry. He just directs things sometimes.
He's like an assistant director. for
Yeah,
the most
yeah.
part.
And
So yeah, they
so
meet, and he's like,
and
"We can
like-
just get drunk."
and like he's at her wedding and stuff,
Mhm.
so he's the goofy friend. And there is a Danny character in some of the later ones, but
In some of the later ones, yeah. So she like
Yeah.
in this one they focus a lot on her like not making it at the start. Like we see
Yeah.
her and they're like, "Any work today?" And she's like, "Oh no."
yeah.
The like the kindest landlord in the world like writes out an eviction notices like, "Nah, I just can't do it. She's got too much dang hard."
Yeah, so there's a lot of that stuff, and like it's fun. It doesn't really show. I guess it shows her like struggling, but it doesn't show her actually like acting.
Yeah, or like auditioning, or I guess when
Yeah.
you get the scene where she like tries to get in with the extras or whatever, and the lady's like, you hear those calls? You see it? She like takes her to a
Oh
switchboard
right, so,
operator
like, see, you
room.
hear every single one of those. Like every single ring of the phone is someone like trying to do what you're doing.
Yeah, that's every actor looking for a job.
Yeah, which is like, so that was an interesting scene. Some of those like very like old fashioned, but kind of cool and in that way.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to see like some of the storytelling moves they make here. And and seeing these ancient things like switchboard operators.
Yeah. Oh my. Okay. There's another shot. Okay. Right when she gets to Hollywood, there's like a Walk of Fame, but it's like old school Walk of Fame, and it's like
Mhm.
imprints in concrete,
Right.
where
and
she
they, like,
literally
maybe sign her
steps
name.
in footprints that are bigger than her feet.
Oh yeah.
Big shoes to fill. And I think it's actually in Norman Main's square or whatever.
Right, which comes up again at the end.
Yeah. Anyway, shots like that.
Shots like that.
Oh, the place she's staying has a sign that says "No Cowboys."
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I thought that was
Just
fun.
wanted to mention that because that's fun.
No cowboys.
As we go, no Cowboys.
Okay, didn't realize that was a big problem in 1937.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of, I guess, more like as she's kind of still trying to get this break, and she ends up taking some work as like a server at a upscale event at someone's
Yeah.
house.
Now, before she takes that event, she first sees Norman Maine at
That's right.
like the orchestra, right?
Yeah, she goes to a show with Danny,
Yeah,
and it's like an opera, or I don't remember.
this-
I watched it like a month ago now.
yeah. It was a while, but like it's an outdoor one with the big like shell like amphitheater. Thing. And so I was like, oh, okay, here he comes. He's going to come perform with the orchestra because, like, all this crowd is like, oh, it's Norman Maine. Oh, he's late. And, oh, my God, he's a little bit tipsy.
Oh, he's kind of falling over himself, yeah.
He's kind of falling over himself. And then I'm like, okay, he's going to get up and perform
And
and be a
sing.
drunk mess. And it's like, no, he's an actor.
Nope,
I was like,
not a
oh,
singer.
okay.
That's funny, yeah. I looked it up, like, I did enough research to know that ahead of time, but, like, I was surprised, for sure.
Yeah, it was a surprise. So, yeah, they make eye contact there. Is this where he accidentally backhands his partner at the time?
Oh,
There's, like, a moment where
there's a few accidental strikes in this.
Yeah,
in this one.
yeah. I was watching these movies with Greta, and she was like, "God, the way they just fucking manhandle women in this,
Yeah.
like straight up, just like picking them up and putting them in place. Like you go there,
Right.
yeah,
Like, grab on the shoulders and, like, move them somewhere.
yeah, just nuts.
Yeah.
But that's like their first thing. The real
Yeah.
meet cute happens at this upscale thing where she's working as a server
Yes.
at a big like acting gig, and she's doing impersonations of Greta Garbo and Katharine Hepburn and stuff.
Yeah, that's when she's doing impressions. I did know Shirley Temple is one.
Shirley Temple. Yeah.
So that's amusing. I kind of recognize those names, but like there's definitely a lot of references to like stars in this movie that I did not get at all. Because
Yeah,
I don't
like
know.
like
It's
so
the
and so. And you're like,
30s,
I don't fucking know any of this shit.
the 1930s, yeah. Anyway, and then so at this point, she's like, okay, this is where do the joke where Norman Maine is like trying to get a scotch and soda or whatever, and they pour him the scotch, and he's like, a little more, and they like keep pouring and keep pouring. And then he's like, keep going until I say, and then the guy beside him is like, the word is when. I'm like...
Yeah, that's his like producer manager guy, right?
Yes, who loves him very much.
Who loves him very much, and yeah, so it's like like a tall glass. It's like an 8-ounce glass, and he gets about 7.5 ounces of scotch,
and then like a spritz of soda, and then I mean, to my mind, he carries it away, gets distracted, and puts it down, and comes get another one. He may finish it. He probably does because he's an alcoholic. But then he like immediately goes back and is like another one, and then the bartender's like, "Oh boy, that's a lot of alcohol."
Yeah, the bartender the same one who served him before, is like surprised that he's doing the same thing again. Like,
so there's like, it's got some like, little old school rom-com like jokes like that. There's a little more of like a comedy side. We move further and further away from the comedy as we, get into the modern.
Yeah, as we get into the real nitty gritty of it. There's a bizarre thing that happens here where like he meets her in the kitchen.
Yeah, she's putting plates away.
Yeah, she's putting plates away, and then like he just starts fucking breaking plates because she like won't like give him her number or whatever, like won't tell him her name. And he's like, but now I'm breaking these plates, and now they're going to fire you. And she's like, oh, Jesus Christ, I'm just trying to pay rent.
Trying to do my job. I'm literally going to get kicked out. She's out of money.
She's out of money, and so then his partner at the time like comes in and sees, he's like, what are you doing with this little waitress? Because it's like, isn't the first time he's done this kind of stuff with young women he finds attractive. That's kind of a running thing too, is like, because then when he recommends it to his production guy, he's like, oh, another fucking lady you want to give screen time to, you horny bastard.
Yeah. And like, it's tales of its time, right? Like,
yeah.
The artist's I mean, usually it's the artist's girlfriend in the stereotype, but obviously it doesn't have to be. Or even the person who tries to become romantically involved with a famous person to further their own career. Does it actually happen? Right. I don't know, but it gets talked about.
Yeah, nobody's tried to further their career by having sex with me, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, that's just how it goes.
That's just how it goes when you get big enough.
Just the way it goes.
But yeah, he takes her out eventually after destroying just about every fucking plate in that kitchen.
Yeah, I think he knocks over a stack or something, too.
There's like a cart, and he fucking it's like a weird, like they're on the way out. Like he already convinced her to leave with her because he's like, well, it's too late now. Because I for some reason, I think like the partner gets like knocked out.
Does she get hit?
She like maybe gets hit or maybe just leaves. And then Norman's like, well, you have to go now. And then they're running out the door, and he like goes back to knock shit off the fucking cart. And then he takes her home, and then we get the classic, the A Star Is Born line.
Right.
He's like, do you mind if I take just one more look?
Just one more look. Just want to get one more look. Or whatever variant of that. And I mean, this is also kind of where they first start to talk as well.
Mm-hmm.
He's obviously into her a bit. Is at this point where he offers to get her a screen test?
Yes.
Yeah. And then it takes a while.
Yeah, it takes for fucking air because he we see him spooning like a bottle of champagne when he goes to bed.
Yep.
Again, a lot of humorous alcoholism jokes here. He calls his manager.
This bit actually comes up where oh no, it's later. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, he calls his manager.
Where he falls asleep and his manager's like, he'll be out for the night.
I think that is that point where it's
because this is a bit where he's in bed and he's calls his manager and then he just throws his sheets off and he's still dressed and he just goes out.
He goes. He's a wild man about town.
Oh, and that's when he talks to her because he goes and finds her again.
Oh, is that what he does? He goes and finds her again,
doesn't he? And then everyone's like, you gotta be at this film shoot in the morning, so make sure that you get some good sleep. And he's like, don't worry about me. And then he goes out.
Okay.
Is that true?
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. I felt like he just had a couple of drinks and then maybe calls her or tries to call her. He goes through a phone book, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Not overly important. We can't be.
Anyway, we can't get into all these details like this.
Yeah, so she gets her screen test, and eventually gets some gigs. She gets an extra gig. She gets a gig where she starts running lines in a little diner. Norman Maine goes and talks to her there. And then eventually what happens is that the person they were going to have act along Norman Maine in this new film has dropped out or died or fucking
Something
fled
happens.
the
They can't
country.
make
Something
it.
happens. They can't
They're
make it. He's
stuck
like,
in
well, what
Russia
about
or
this
something.
dame? And he's like, you sneaky Norman Maine, I should have known.
Yeah.
And so they bring her on, and that's the big takeoff moment. A star is beginning to be birthed.
She does her first movie, and then they do their first screening. And then is this the one? I think they say in a few of them maybe, which says like, well, first thing you got to know is never listen to the critics or something like that.
Yeah.
And then like they show this movie. Everyone loves Vicky Lester, except does she have that name yet? There's a whole scene where like she's getting accepted by the like talent agency or management company or whatever.
I think they must have it at that point because
it's gotta be before that because she's always billed as Vicky Lester.
And it's a great scene because they're like, her name's Ethel Blodgett, and she's like, that sucks.
Yeah.
We've got to come up with something that you just actually see the producer like rattle off in his brain. He's like, Ethel Blodgett.
It's like, all right, and then like her middle name's Victoria, so they're like, all right, Vicky, we'll go with Vicky, and then they're like, what do we do for the last name?
Yeah, and he like changes Esther to Lester, and is like, boom, Vicky Lester.
And that's what's the guy's name? The publicist, right?
Oh yeah, that greasy guy.
Mr.
Sandman.
Mr. Libby.
Mr. Libby, Matt Libby. Yeah, at this point has been covering up like a bunch of drunk driving incidents and stuff for Norman Maine.
Yeah. Because he's the publicist.
He's the publicist, and what was crazy about the screening test they do, not the screen test, but rather when they screen the film for the first time, is at the end of it, it's like, be sure to mail in your comment cards with your comments about the film. It's like, what? It's insane.
By mail. Oh, okay.
By mail, yeah. And then afterwards, luckily, everybody is immediately talking about the film and just talking about how incredible Vicky Lester is and how much Norman Maine can go and fuck himself.
Yeah, basically. And then they're like happy together. Then, or they're getting closer and closer. And then is that when they announce their intention to get married to the like management company?
Yeah, and then he does the like calculations. He's like, and she's like, what's the matter? He's like, he's deciding whether it's good for the production company.
Oh yeah.
And then he's like, it is.
And then
he promises to give up drinking. That's one of the things.
He does, because he proposes to her. He said, what if I asked you to marry me? And she's like, well, I'd have to say no, kind of thing. And then, they says like, unless. Or what did she say? She says like, you're like a drunk and like a liar or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
I don't remember the line exactly. My notes for this one are pretty sparse compared to the other ones.
Yeah, my notes like this are things like, remember when they were at a boxing match? And I'm like, yeah, I do remember that. That was strange.
Did they go to a boxing match?
They do go to a boxing match.
Danny takes you to a boxing match?
No, Norman Maine does.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I hardly remember that. I feel like there's some things that get cut out. They definitely get an opportunity to streamline some things in the later ones, which is wild because they're still longer. But,
they get an opportunity and they fucking throw it into the wind and say, no, let's make a 3-hour masterpiece.
We'll get there soon enough.
Yeah.
So then they get married. Mr. Libby's angry because they like elope, and he was like planning this big press event, basically.
Yeah, because they're like, we're gonna do a casual thing, and he's like, no, we're gonna get the mayor involved. It's gonna be a holiday for the school children.
They're literally like, we're gonna do this thing. He's like, no, don't do that. I want a different thing. And then they go and do that, and he's like, why'd you do that thing? It's like, well, you said we were gonna.
They said they were gonna, and yeah, that's where we get to hear Norman Maine's real name for the first time, which is like Henkel.
Yeah, because they
like
both have
Norman and
stage
Henkel.
names.
They both got stage names. Yes. So that's that thing that he does.
Hey, you know what I forgot to mention?
What?
This movie starts by zooming in on a script.
That's right. That's crazy.
Yeah, so it's like kind of got a framing device of like, this is a movie.
Yeah, the same like framing device as The Outsiders.
So that's fun. I forgot that was The Outsiders.
That
The
is
Outsiders,
fun, yeah.
The book? Or is it
the book, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And because it's written by not by Pony Boy. Yeah, by Pony Boy. Pony Boy writes the book.
Okay.
Or it's like a school essay or something.
Totally forgot about that. Anyway, yeah, so it has that going on because it's kind of got this like meta Hollywood thing. It's a movie about Hollywood, which was more novel at the time, I think.
Yeah, they like in that quote, I was like, he's like, they don't need to go to fictional Europe. They can go just to Hollywood.
Yeah,
How
some
crazy.
like weird like comic strip reference that I don't get but had to Google or something like that. I don't remember. Or like
Yeah,
an
it's-
old book series. Anyway,
So here's the thing that will never be repeated is them going on like a camping trip. For their
yeah, they
honeymoon.
do their honeymoon, and it's like, I mean, it's entirely played for comedy. Like that is
Yeah.
an entirely comedic scene that really doesn't move anything a lot. Like he's driving this older truck, or I mean, everything is old because the 30s, so maybe it's a
Yeah.
new truck, and I just can't tell. He's driving his truck, and like there's a camper behind. She's in the camper, like frying it, like pan searing a steak,
Yeah, pan
like a
searing a
massive
steak.
and he's just like, and they're like going along this bumpy road in the backcountry, and like he strips a gear and like fucks up the car, and like they get stuck, and he's like, well, I better take a shower, and like he's taking a shower, and she drops the steak on the ground and just brushes it off. It's all just like comedy, and then a guy comes by and he's like, well, I'm wet, I better put this house coat on. Tries to talk to the guy, and the guy like will not take them back to town. It's a whole thing.
Yeah,
And
because
then
he doesn't know who he is.
he's like, I don't know who you are, and he's like, you don't know I'm Norman Maine? And he's like, oh, don't know that.
Oh,
sir."
very nice to meet you, Norman Maine.
And like,
I'm Jebediah
yeah.
or whatever.
yeah.
Like,
And then like they're just stuck there, and then like next scene, we built a house. We're back in Hollywood.
yeah, we're back in Hollywood. Like, we don't see how they get out of that scenario. It's just like meant to be a comedy scene about RVs and how small they are and how strange to have a mobile home.
Yeah,
And then-
like how you can do home stuff while driving. What? And that's their honeymoon, I guess. And then he
Yeah.
builds a home by the sea.
Does he build it?
I don't think that's just like his house. I think he like has it built, or like
Okay.
was having it built. Because I think that also
Alright.
happens in the next
In the next
two
one?
movies.
Next
The
two? Yeah,
one,
yeah,
'cause
he
it's
always
like,
has, like,
let's
a-
build a house together, and then like the house is built. There's no like construction until the 70s one.
Yeah, no construction montage, unfortunately. Yeah. So there's sleeping with the shampoo. We talked about this. Yeah. So then here we kind of get into the decline arc.
Yeah, they get the scene that it comes up a couple more times where like he's sitting around at home, doesn't have any work. She comes home after a long day of working. Sees he's been like puttering, literally like putting golf balls.
Yeah.
Around. He like has some messages for her because he's answering the phone, and it's like, hey, we want to talk to Vicky. Do you know her? And he's like, yeah.
Yeah. They're like, it's always, are you the butler?
Right. Are you the
And then
butler?
he gets a call from a news guy who's like, we're looking for an exclusive interview with Vicky. And he's like, oh, damn it.
Yeah.
And then he answers the door for a package, and the guy's like, who the fuck are you? This is for Vicky Lester. He's like, I'm her fucking husband. And then he goes, okay, Mr. Lester. And he's like,
Right.
No, I'm fucking Norman Maine. God
yeah,
damn
people
it.
aren't recognizing him. And of course, as we mentioned, he's like offered to stop drinking, so he hasn't been drinking at this point
Yeah.
for
And that's
some
like the
period of time.
turning point for him there.
But this is
we
where
do
he starts
see
to
him
yeah.
before
Well, eventually, I mean, like at first, it's like wearing him down slowly over the course of the scene, right? Because
Yeah.
then she comes home, they're like, happy couple. She's like, I just
Yeah.
like had to come home so quickly. I'm still in my outfit from work because I like
Right.
didn't want to change before I came home. I changed now. He's like, I made sandwiches. The servants
Right.
are out tonight. Like,
The servants are out tonight, and she's like, oh my, it's too big for my mouth. It's like, just bite at the corner. What the fuck are you
yeah,
talking
what do you
about?
mean? You don't have to fit the whole thing. It's a sandwich.
It's a sandwich.
But and apparently not a very good sandwich. Also,
Yeah, like, I guess?
like that's what they're like. Ooh, he's not really good at making these sandwiches. And he says something
And-
about being a house.
And then they're
Hawaii
having
house husband.
milk
I think
with
is
it.
what he.
Yeah, something like that.
So they have, and then they have that scene, and he. What happens? Oh, right.
Hang on,
The
it's
other.
important to note that they're drinking milk here, though.
They're drinking
'cause
milk.
Earlier,
Yes.
he's like, milk could use a little rum in it. And then here he's just drinking straight milk.
Yeah. And
Nowhere.
by the end of the scene, he said, like the culmination of the scene is he says, well, he starts to give her all the messages, and what I can't remember if there's another thing that happens.
How many people at the table for, because this is her
Yeah,
Oscar award.
Because she's been nominated for an Oscar already. And then basically the end of the scene is he says, I need a drink.
And this is always the craziest thing, is that he's like, I need a drink. And then she does nothing. She doesn't
she
even
just
go
does the like frowny face a bit. And
she's like,
it's like,
"Aw."
this is a major thing. You gotta.
Yeah, like, this is huge. He's quit drinking for
I mean,
like,
not to blame Vicky, not to blame Esther here. She's doing her best, but I'm surprised she doesn't say anything.
Yeah, to put in no effort when your partner who's like, I'm gonna quit drinking is now like, I'm getting back on the wagon or off the wagon, whichever it is.
Yeah.
And she's just like, well, I'm not even gonna say like, no, don't do that, or like, let's talk about it or something. She just like frowns and is like, that's life. It's I find it to be lacking. Yes, I know she can't save him from alcoholism.
Right.
But like,
But it's, yeah, I guess a little unbelievable.
put in a little effort.
And maybe it's maybe things were different in 37, but
Oh, they for sure were.
I don't know. I feel like almost nothing has changed since 1937.
You know what, you're right, Alex. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Like, look, we're still dressing exactly the same. I've got my
Yeah,
fedora on.
and we talk the same too.
Yeah, we're using the same voice. So that's again your turning point. Like we're getting down. This is sort of the big turn downwards as he starts drinking again, and then so we go to the Oscars.
Yes.
Which or the Academy Awards? Were they called the Oscars yet? Widely.
The Academy Awards.
Anyway, she's getting an Academy Award for Best Actress.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you know? Oh, no, Norman Maine, he's late.
Yeah, he's late. He's always late.
She doesn't know where he is. Everyone said, like, don't worry. He's probably just, like, lost. He'll get here. And when you know it, she wins.
Yes.
She wins. She goes up on stage. She has her speech, which is something like, I can only think of 2 words to say, and those words are thank and you.
That's right.
Something like that. And then Norman Maine shows up, very drunk.
Yes.
And very belligerent.
And he demands a Razzie.
Demands a Razzie for being the worst actor.
He's like, where's the awards for worst actor?
Okay.
God knows I've earned them.
Yeah. And messes up her speech, embarrasses her, and also hits her accidentally. Is that true?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I think he like turns around and just like his hand happens to like hit her, and then everybody's just like, we're gonna move on from that. Nothing to see here.
Yeah. The other thing we see at the award ceremony is like the other people at her table are like the people from the management company.
Yeah.
We've established that the like manager guy has a soft spot and a fondness for Norman Maine. You know, he's trying to protect him. A
PR
father
guy
figure
does
of
not.
sorts.
Yeah.
But yeah, the publicist guy doesn't like him. So
No. He's like, I don't know why you keep that guy on. He's like, Norman Maine's a friend and a comrade.
So
I won't hear anything bad about
didn't
him.
write specific lines down, but
It's to that effect.
yeah. So anyway, then she's kind of brought into the family.
Yeah.
Just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, that checks out. And then they send Norman Maine to the sanitarium.
Yeah, he goes to the sanitarium. Old-timey rehab.
Old-timey rehab. Vicky Lester convinces the manager, who we really should have named. He has a name, but it's too late now. Oliver. That's right, Oliver Niles.
Oliver Niles.
And she's like, please go there and give him a bit part in the film so he can get back on his feet. And
yes.
he's like, by God,
but
I'll
she
do
says another line which is important. Something about like all he has left is his pride. Is that it?
That's right. And so she's like, make it sound very good and not like a favor. And he's like, I'll do my goddamnedest. He shows up there. He's like, and Maine has to be accompanied by Mr. Cuddles.
Is that what his name is?
It's at least in one of the films, it is Mr. Cuddles.
I don't remember.
Or Cuddly, I don't fucking know, but he is like the sanitarium worker who's there to ensure that he's not getting drugs or a shipment of whiskey or anything.
And he's goofing around, right? You know, he's being personable and being like, they're always... They think I'm trying to sneak in some vodka. What do you think? He's got vodka in his hat? Or whatever he says.
Yeah, he's like, you think he's got a crate full of vodka stuck up his asshole?
Yeah.
He looks at
exactly.
Oliver with
that's
like pleading eyes.
Line
Like,
for sure.
That's a 1937
That's a line a movie would have at the height of the Hays Code.
Stuck up his keister, my bad.
Do they even have... I guess keister's probably an old word.
Probably. But yeah, he's being very amicable, very friendly, very warm, and he's like, Mr. Cuddles says I should see the other guys here. They're really messed up in the head, let me tell you.
Although he's kind of starting to like hunch a bit almost at this point. You know, so he seems a little beaten down.
A little beaten down.
But yeah, so the manager offers him this part. We didn't mention this, but his contract gets bought out. Is that why he starts drinking again?
That is another. It's kind of like the other factors.
Right, the
yeah,
other
his contract
factors, like,
gets bought
They're
out.
like, sorry, we
'cause-
can't. Like, you're not doing well, and like, we gotta end this.
Yeah, because they go to the place he built, his home he built. They
Yeah.
take pictures of him with Vicky Lester, and then they tell him to fuck off,
Yeah.
so they can get some with just Lester. He talks to Oliver. Oliver's like, "Hey there, pal, how's it going?" He's like, "Tell me the truth. Am I slipping?" He's like, "You're using the wrong tense. You slipped. The people, they don't love you anymore."
Yeah. Yes. Okay. That's the other.
And so, and he again, I think he like buys out the contract as a favor, or he tells him to buy out the contract. He's like, "Listen, Oliver, don't let me weigh you down. Take me out, and I'll just keep the shit moving." He's like,
Yeah.
"Very well. I love you so much, Norman Maine. God damn it."
Yeah. So now they're talking at the sanitarium. He offers him this role. He's excited about it because he wants to
Mhm.
work, and like he's looking to work again.
Yes.
But then he says like, "Who am I starring opposite?" And then he kind of says like, "Oh, it's not a starring role."
Yeah, not a starring role. He's like, but it's quite a small part. He's like, but they'll be thinking about you for the whole
Yeah,
film.
but he's like, I happen to think it's better than the main character. kind of
yeah,
thing.
he's that was maybe too hard of a sell on
Yeah,
his
exactly.
part.
And then he's like, "Oh, well, I actually have other things lined up," which is a lie.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, I got other studios." He's like, "Well, maybe after that one." He's like, "Oh, I got like a fucking ton."
Yeah, I've just got so much stuff, so you should probably find someone else. Obviously, again, lying.
Yeah.
So he's clearly still down in the dumps, even though he's at this sanitarium.
Yeah, and then he disappears after
Yes.
coming back from the sanitarium.
He's sort of like they know he's released, they know he's coming home, but he doesn't ever arrive.
Oh, right, because he gets his ass beat at the horse tracks.
He does. He goes out to these horse tracks and he gets water or soda or something.
He gets the ginger ale and
Ginger
just
ale.
ginger ale.
Just ginger ale, yeah. And then he's kind of sees, I think, some of his some other Hollywood folks, and like doesn't necessarily talk. He doesn't talk to them in this one.
He kind of like nods at people. He's
Yeah.
just like he's playing it low key, and then
But
Libby
people are
shows
like,
up.
kind of, because he was kind of like a rough and tumble guy. He's burnt a lot of bridges, you know.
Yeah.
He doesn't really have friends.
Mhm.
So that's part of it. And then he sees Mr. Libby.
Yeah,
And he
Mr.
tries
Libby's
to like
I
strike
was
up
never your friend.
conversation, basically, because he's like, finally someone I know. And Mr. Libby's like, no, fuck you. I don't like you.
Yeah, he's
You
like,
have
I
made
don't
my
like
life
you.
difficult for years. Like,
You're a leech off your wife. Fuck you. And then Norman Main's like, you can't talk to me like that. Swings at him, but I don't know. Are we supposed to believe that Norman Main's like not tough, or that he's just like he's off his A game in every sense? And so he
it's
just-
got to just be like, it's all an act, right?
right.
I don't think
Because they
he's really
eventually
a tough
remove
guy.
that in later versions. They're like, no, this guy's a fucking swinger. Like Norman Maine can kick some ass.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't come across as a fighter. He does go to that boxing match, but that's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it. Yeah. So he takes a swing at Libby. Libby fucking drops him.
Yeah. And then he's shook, so he gets a drink. And then
Yeah.
doesn't, and then this is when we learn he's disappeared, no one can find him for I think several days.
Yeah.
It's the
Wikipedia
middle
says a
of the night.
4-day drinking binge.
Yeah. And then finally he shows up because he gets picked up for drunk driving.
Yeah, and so they go to night court,
He goes
which
to night court.
is a weird thing. And you see all like the saddest group of drunks.
Yeah, it's a bunch
like,
of
how do you
people who've picked
plead?
up for various drinking
For
offenses.
various drinking
Public
offenses. He's like,
intoxication.
I don't feel so good. He's like, I don't care how you feel, guilty or not guilty. And so they run through some drunks. Norman Maine comes up. He sentences him to 90 days, but then Esther is just like, no, please. Do you know who I am? I'm a celebrity. Let me take care of my husband. And they're like, all right, sure. He's a piece of shit, right?
Yeah.
She's like, yes, but I love him. And she takes him home, and then he's like sleeping it off. And this is the other line that's repeated often, where she's like, he looks just like a child when he sleeps, and it's like he doesn't know all the harm and pain and everything that he's caused. And then he like starts to wake up as she's like, I will forego my beautiful career in order to
Right.
take care of my husband.
He's kind of in like the other room, but like the door's
Yeah.
cracked. And then she is talking to the manager, whose name I have forgotten once again.
Oliver Niles.
Oliver Niles. That name has a similar ring to it as Giles Corey, I think. I don't know why.
Yeah, a bit. Oliver
Maybe it's
Niles
the
Corey.
Isles.
Yeah.
But it made me think of it. Anyway, so yeah, she announces, not to him, but announces her intention to retire basically and move home essentially. and like work on the farm or whatever. I don't know, but like leave Hollywood with him so they can be together and he can be in an environment that is less, I guess, triggering. I don't know.
Yeah, something lower stress for him.
Yeah.
And he hears that and he's like, I can't have her throw away her career. He's like, this is always a big part of it, is like he wants her to be a star. He's like, she's got what it takes. She's got the talent. She's got the je ne sais quoi. We got to get her out there. So he hears that and he like goes out and plays like everything's all normal. And he's like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm going to start living a healthier life. I'm going to go for a swim. And she's like, should I come along with? He's like, no, make me a hot toddy, hot soup. And then he goes and walks into the ocean.
And never comes back. Well,
never comes back. Well, yeah.
So, yeah, and then it cuts. Yeah, like we described the shot earlier.
Yeah.
That was this episode, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Where it shows the
it just
house
lingers
coat
on
getting
him
washed
on
out.
where his house coat is. So we see him
the
walk
time
out to the
lapse.
beach, take off the house coat, and then he walks out of frame.
Walk into the water.
And then we see the tide like eventually take the house coat.
Yeah, and then it sort of cuts to, I mean, wide shot, but then it cuts to, like newspaper headline, body of Norman Maine found. Basically.
Yeah, and then we see her at a funeral, and everybody's trying to get a picture. Somebody like, is this the one where somebody takes off her veil and she goes like, ah?
That happens in, I think, the first two.
First two, yeah.
But this scream is like heart wrenching. She
Yeah.
like screams like someone, because it's all these like fans, right? Everyone
Yes.
wants to talk to her. Everyone's like, Mr. Lester, you got. Did I say Mr.? Anyway,
Yeah,
Miss Lester, Miss Lester. You know, do
yeah.
you have a comment? Whatever. And she doesn't want to talk to anyone. And then someone reaches in, pulls her veil back, and she just like screams.
Yeah, it's like a terror, like a horror film.
Yeah.
And then we cut to her. She's packing up. She decided to go and move
she's
back to the
still
country.
leaving Hollywood. But what's this?
But her grandma shows up and rips her a new one.
And convinces her to stay.
She's like, listen here, you little sassy dame. You said you were willing to do anything to be a star. Now one bad thing's happening, you're turning around. I won't have it.
Exactly.
Secretly, I think because her grandma really wanted to make it to Hollywood. I feel
Yeah.
like that was her plot this whole time. She's like, I get to walk on the theater scene.
Which
Then she takes her to
does.
this like premiere or like
it's
memorial.
some kind of event. I think they say what it is, and like they plan to go to it before Norman Maine dies.
Yeah.
And they say like, I don't remember. They're like, there's a thing coming up or whatever. Oh no, it's a charity event of some kind.
Oh, okay, yeah, and they're like, can you please make an appearance?
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
we get to see the reappearance of Danny here. He escorts the grandma, who does an interview with some people and lies about her age.
Right.
She's like, why? I'm 25. Like,
You're like, "Ah, sure,
okay.
Grandma." And then, so she gets to have fun on the red carpet, and they walk
Yeah.
up, and then there's like this microphone with,
Mhm.
I think there's like 4 microphones or something like that. There's multiple
Yeah.
microphones on this thing, and they're like, the whole country, like this one's going to the West Coast, this one's going to the East
Right,
Coast,
yeah,
this one's going to
yeah.
whatever. But the whole country's listening. Do you have anything to say, Miss Lester? And then she says, like, I am Mrs. Norman Maine. or something.
Maine, yeah. She says,
Norman
hello?
West.
This is
Hello?
Mrs.
This is-
Norman Maine.
That's it. And then that's the end.
Yeah. Craziest thing is that line was a punch up by the 2 additional writers who came on.
Each of
they
them
didn't have
it was
that.
like, I
One
think
guy
she
wrote
should say
down,
hello,
"This is."
and the other guy filled in the rest.
He's like, well, who the fuck is it? Well, it's Mrs. Norman Maine. That's the film. We've talked a bit. Let's break this down. Pros and cons. I think the plot itself is pretty good. I like it.
Yeah,
Um,
conceptually solid. There's definitely some old-fashioned stuff in there that, like, there's some fluff. Like, we talked about the honeymoon scene. Not really
Yeah.
necessary.
Not really necessary. And not really like that. Like you can have excess in film. People talk about whether like everything needs to be like adhering to the plot or whether you have room for a little
Right.
bit of, and like
Yeah,
You
like,
do
does
have
everything
room
need
for
to move
that.
us forward? Can we have a little bit of development that's not necessarily plot-related? Yeah, I think there's room for that. But there's some, you could cut some stuff from this. And
yeah,
make
it's so much in this is like bizarre and like would not play in in a modern version of the film. I like some of the comedy in it. I like a bit of I like when Vicky Lester does her impressions of other famous actors as she's like trying to work her way up. It's very funny. It's very charming.
Yeah, very nice. It's always weird. We talk now about like power dynamics and relationships more.
Yeah,
But it's always,
absolutely.
even I think at the time, like we talked about how it's a cliche of like, a star taking advantage of someone trying to become a star. So I think that was part of it. It was just kind of unspoken. certainly in the older ones where it's like he is legitimately falling for her, but like she can't know that. Like he could just be taking advantage of her naivete.
Yeah, he does like kind of try to distance himself from her. He's like, "No, you've made it. You're a star now. You don't need me." And she's like, "But I love you."
Yeah, so like that's where you kind of get the like honest, the like earnest part of it.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, because we do have to believe that Norman Maine is good, right? We can't have him be a predator.
True. That's the important thing. Is that is as much as he has issues, and those don't really get delved into until much later. But you know, he's at heart a decent fella.
A decent fella, good, upstanding man. Yeah, and so I think what we do see is much better love stories coming in the later editions. Because I think there is like still something maybe just a bit stiff, a bit weird about this one that doesn't quite like hit as nicely as it could. I think one of the big things that helps that is particularly in the two most recent versions is that the connection over their shared like passion is much clearer, like through music than it is through acting.
Yeah, you can express some stuff through the songs that even starts to happen in the 50s one, but it's a little more muddled because of the... Well, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, that of it all.
And I mean, I don't know how restricted films were at the time, but there's definitely some things they wouldn't want to show. Like, I think they don't kiss before getting married, right? Like,
yeah, I don't
know if you could show that. I don't remember now. I'd have to double check on that. But like, it feels a little more sterile in that way, just because nowadays you're like, oh yeah, well we can do like nudity or near nudity in film, no problem. But like, you can't have that in 37.
It's interesting that like the sexuality on this, like in terms of sterility, is like low here, probably peaks in 1976 and dips back down with the most recent one.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. There is a bit of that stiffness there. It's like, well, we can't show these people like really being in love before they're married. That's a bit like absurd. But yeah, all in all, solid. And watching it, I was like, cool. I'm very excited to see what comes next.
And what comes next?
What comes next is a fucking slog.
Thought it was a slog, eh? It was
1954. It's long. Directed by George Cukor, who originally declined to direct the original because it was too similar to a movie he had just directed, the name of which I have forgotten. Let me tell you the name of this. Who directed the remake? Come on. Cukor felt the plot was too similar to What Price Hollywood, a film he had directed like 2 years ago. Or 5 years ago, actually, 1932. So he then comes on for this one.
To the movie that was directed that came out in 1937 that it's based on?
Well, in 1937, they approached him to make the film.
Oh, I see.
And then he said, no, it's too similar to What Price Hollywood that I just directed 5 years ago. And they said, okay, we'll get William A. Wellman to do it. It's fuck you.
Okay.
And then this time around, he comes on it because they had done like radio play versions of this. And Judy Garland specifically had done a radio play version of this. And she had been off of movies for quite a few years. Her first film since leaving MGM in 1950. So Judy Garland, in terms of actors, she is about the closest to the Norman Maine character in terms of lived experiences.
The Norman Maine character?
Yes, because she has a lot of mental breakdowns, some substance abuse issues, and those things come into play during the production process of this film, because apparently it was a real pain to make and produce. So this one's a big musical.
Yeah.
There's a big musical number about halfway through the film that they shot like 3 or 4 times in different outfits.
Is that the like premiere?
Yeah, that's
like right at the halfway point basically. And then there's an actual intermission.
Yes, there's a literal intermission in this film because it is 3 hours long. Now this runtime, it was originally a little bit longer, and then George Cukor and the gang knocked it down to like 182. Then Warner Brothers, under some pressure from theaters, it's just like people who buy the movies off Warner Brothers, like, this thing is too fucking long. How are we going to turn a profit on for this if every running is 3 hours? So they cut it down to 2.5 hours. And then They just because films didn't care, like the studios didn't care about preserving shit that they had thrown away. They apparently melted down a lot of the cut footage on the master for the silver content. They're like, we'll make our money back from the silver on this film that we're no longer using.
Is that why there's a scene that's just pictures?
Yes.
Oh my god! I could not figure out. I was like, what is going on?
In 1981,
so much of the movie,
in celebration of one of the people who worked on the soundtrack for this film, Ira Gershwin or something like that. Ira Gershwin. They had the cut footage of the first song she plays in that dive bar, the first song she sings. That was cut from their original theater run, despite being like critical to the film. So yeah, that's not in the original because they premiered the original one and it's full length. But from the cut version that Warner Bros. Did, they took out that song, which is insane.
Yeah.
So they play that. And then the president of the Academy is like, yo, that fucking rocks. That's Faye Kinnan. She's like, that's sick. I want to see more of that. She gets in contact with the WB. She's like, can I get my hands on this? And they're like, yeah, okay. So this film preservationist, Ronald Haver, starts digging around through the archives of film librarian and Grand Theft Motion Picture criminal, which I was not able to find more details on, Merle Ray Harlan. And he digs around in there. He finds 2 more musical numbers. Here's What I'm Here For and Lose That Long Face. They're unable to find like about 8 minutes of dramatic scenes, but they decide to use production stills instead of cutting that footage because they were able to find the full soundtrack.
Audio.
And so in 1983, July 7th, they released the reconstructed version, screening at the Radio City Music Hall.
With an extra 20 minutes of footage.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's the version you and I have seen, and that's why maybe you just weren't paying attention at the start, but there is like a thank you to the Academy.
I did miss that entirely.
Yeah, so that's at the start of the film. And so that's the setup.
I was eating ice cream, maybe that's
why. You were eating ice cream, that would do it, Alex.
It happens. Okay, that's a real interesting story. It's an interesting movie. I mean, with these old ones, I just find them so fascinating. It's hard for me to think of them the same way I think of, like, if I go see a movie with these old ones, because it's just, like, old stuff. And old stuff is, like, fun to me.
Right.
Just because it's old and, like, novel.
Okay, yeah.
And I think this movie is part of that.
Sure,
but what's interesting, I mean, part of the reason the runtime is so long, one is the other ones are kind of longish as well, but like it has these full musical numbers, and
they're full, like
long, like full. Whereas some
20-minute tracks.
Yeah. Well, one of them is like, is it like 20 minutes long when she does her debut thing? It's like long.
It's so long, and the one at the end is very long too.
Which is the one at the.
Oh wait, no. Actually, I'm still thinking of The Boy in the Trunk or whatever. That is the one that is very long. There's one at the end where she's dressed up. Why the long face, where she looks like a scarecrow person.
Oh yes, that's quite a while.
That's quite a while too.
And I mean, there's a whole scene in the middle, like the new version of like his downfall scene, where he's like giving her messages and the package and stuff. There's like a whole musical number in there where she's like singing to him.
Yeah, they fucking put Judy Garland to work here.
Absolutely. I would have had a breakdown too.
I would have had a breakdown too, and like all he has to do in that scene is like smile and laugh occasionally when the camera's like, "Oh, you're a wild one," as she does this like fucking 10-minute number about the play or the movie she's working in at the time. It's fucking insane.
So I didn't dig into the lyrics all that much. There's a lot of them, but like they're kind of related to what's happening, right? So like it's a musical, but it's a bit. Because it's a musical about people who make musicals, right? So, like, the songs they sing they're the story of a different show, but they kind of play into the plot. So, like, but not really. So, like, you have this whole set, like, part of the film that is musical numbers that don't really further the plot. So, you have to have a whole film on top of that.
Yeah.
So, it ends up being really long.
Very, very, very long. Yeah, there are some good things about this one.
There are. I mean,
that.
First thing, they cut out basically everything before them meeting.
Yeah, or get right to the fucking meet cute. She works in an orchestra.
Show. She's performing. She's singing with some other people. There's Danny. He's the piano player.
Yeah, Norman Maine is there. He's shit-faced, he gets on stage with them, and she, like, works it. She's like, okay, we're going to dance a little bit. Okay, we're going to get you off stage. He's like, no, we're not. We won't do that. And she's like,
right.
no.
But she, like, plays it off well, and everyone, like, has a good time, even though he's, like, stumbling around and basically just being awful.
Being a nuisance. And then they set up their version of the Hollywood walk moment in this early scene. So we forgot to mention this, but when she's going to that charity event in the original, she looks down and she sees the Norman Maine signature and like handprints and footprints and dick prints or whatever else.
Like, here's looking at you, kid, or whatever.
Yeah, like exactly that. And so that kind of like inspires her to have her "This is Mrs. Norman Maine" moment. And this moment, he like grabs her lipstick because she's like complaining with the lad. She's like, "This fucking guy is hammered." He's like, "Oh, Norman Maine was hammered, was he?" And he flirts a bit, and then he does a big love heart with their initials in it.
Yeah.
And then
she's still Esther Blodgett in this one.
That's right. Yeah, she's still Esther Blodgett. And then he fucks off. The next day, he's like kind of trying to find her. So he goes to a club where they perform. And then there's this club owner who like also is his like...
Isn't this like the same night?
Is it the same night?
Like,
I assumed it was
like,
a different night.
I gotta go to a thing. Like, I have somewhere to be, which is her performance with her band. With Danny
I assumed it was a different
And then he like follows her, kind of?
No, because he has this scene with the club owner where he's like, "Hey, where's that dame?" He's like, "You're looking for this? She works with this like music company. Go over to here." He's like, and then he's like, "Hey, you got any other like sweet pussy in the club here?" And he's like, "What about this dame over here?" He's like, "She fucking slapped me like 8 times." He's like, "What about this one over here?" And he's like, "No, we don't get along since she shit on my chest or whatever." Like, this club owner is also like a date hunter for him, and it's very strange.
Okay, I remember that now. Right, so he finds her. She sings, and he's like, "You're very good at singing."
Yes. This is like a very stressful scene because he like isolates her from her group of friends, like violently.
He's very,
like he grabs her and he's like, "Quick, come over and talk to me. Have you ever seen a boxing match?" And then he like decides he's not far enough away from them, so he goes to another room. They go through a kitchen.
Secondary location. That's dangerous.
It's very dangerous.
But they do have he drives her home.
Yes.
And then she says, like, "I gotta leave in the morning."
Right, because she's with, like, a touring group of
they're touring. And he says, like, "No, I know you could make it if you stayed here.
Mm-hmm.
So stay here and, like, I'll get you a screen test or whatever."
Screen test, exactly. Similar to the original. But, like, we move so much quicker in this one. There's no, like, sitting at the farmhouse getting teased by her family. So that was one of the things I initially appreciated. It was like, okay, we're at the meat of things immediately.
Yeah, it's right into the romance, right into them meeting. The meat of the meat.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, want to look at you one last time. Hey, did we mention that he says that again before he walks into the ocean?
Very important, but yes, he says that. Yeah. And he does that every time, so that's what happens here.
Because he knows he's gonna suicide, but nobody else does.
Yeah. Norman Maine in this seems a lot more, because we know the next few beats, she's convinced to join, she signs up with the industry, or seems a lot more like helpful in terms of setting her up in this one.
True, although this is where the extended still segment happens.
Right.
Where like he fucks off because he basically gets kidnapped by his manager to go film, like he's like passed out from drinking and then, like, wakes up in a car and goes to make a movie and then he can't find her. For like a while, because he's out like on the ocean making this movie for a while.
Oh, that's right. He's out on the ocean.
Yeah, and then she's like just working odd jobs, and she had said something earlier about like I'll never work like slinging burgers again, and then like she has to in this segment.
In this thing, yeah, I kind of like tuned out for these like production real ones.
It was so weird. I was like, why is it's all stills? I was like, I don't understand this artistic choice, but now I do.
Yeah, it's a restoration decision.
It's a restoration thing. So anyway, eventually he does find her, kind of semi by chance, I think.
Yeah.
I don't remember the details.
I don't know, because it's done in stills. I think he deliberately finds her though, because
he's like, looking for her.
Drives his nice car to her neighborhood, and he's like, "You kids get away from that car, or I'll fucking wallop you! Well, I swear to God."
Yeah, yes, that does happen. And then
also, he's British in this one.
I didn't even notice. Is he actually?
He's a British actor, and it comes out a bit in the
because they have the like mid-Atlantic sort of not British, not American accent thing going on.
Yeah.
So they meet. He gets her screen test, but she's doing some like, still minor work. I think she's like waving a handkerchief out a window of a of a trainer.
Oh, that's right. And they're like, we don't want to see your fucking hand.
Yeah,
There's all this work that goes into building this
we don't want to
shot.
see your face. We just want to see your like
We
do it
just wanna see
again,
your
but
hand.
please don't let us see you, kind of thing.
Please. And then same fucking beat, like the lead drops out for another film that Norman's in. He hints
But-
to Oliver to get her in.
Yeah, but he specifically like she's singing or he's playing a recording of her singing. And then he's like,
Right.
"Oh, you need to find someone? Oh, I wonder who you could be." And he like kind of opens his like window so you can like hear her singing more. And then he's like, "Oh, I wonder if we could find someone like around here who could sing."
Sing like
Gee.
that. Wouldn't that be crazy?
Wow.
Yeah,
And
he
eventually-
lays it on pretty thick.
He's like, "Okay, I see what you." Yeah. Anyway, and then she gets her screen tap. There's other bits in here. There's a whole makeup bit where like they give her a fake nose.
Oh yeah, and they fuck her hair up, and like he has a good laugh at
Yeah,
her.
and then he like helps her redo her makeup before her.
That's
screen tap.
that's actually a really good moment, I think, because it
because he's like,
plays
"No, we
into
want to
something
see the
that'll come
real
in. He's
you,"
like,
kind of thing.
yeah, he's like, we don't need Hollywood to tell you what you look like. You are.
Yeah,
good
but
the
it
way
also
you
like
are.
it really fucked me up for a minute because like I was like, why does her face look so different? And then he like pulls her nose off. I was like, oh shit, it's a fake nose.
Oh my god!
Fairly convincing fake nose.
Yeah, they had the skills back then, man. But yeah, they run her through the gamut of
Oh man,
like,
I found
Hollywood
a
industry.
line I wrote down. Don't
Yes.
settle for a little dream. You go on to the big one. That's what he says.
Oh
to
yeah,
her.
that's what he says to
they're
her when
talking
they're
about
at her apartment that night.
Yeah. I don't know why
Yes.
I didn't. I have not been reading my notes. I've been.
I'm looking at them as I kind of go, and it's sometimes helpful.
Anyway,
sometimes not.
and that's before. This is also when because she's like doing a bunch of like, put like what, like not grunt work. She's like working like she's like punching in, punching out. They're like giving her paycheck and stuff daily. You know, it's like
oh yeah, she gets her first pay stub, and they're
Yeah.
like, Vicky Lester, you're Vicky Lester now.
But she goes, she goes to B, and they're like, no,
Yes.
you need to be in L to get your thing. And she's like, what? That's weird. So then that's what she finds out. She's become
yeah,
Vicky
she's
Lester.
Vicky Lester. Okay, yeah.
So that's fun.
Yeah, that is a fun thing. That's after she does is that where they like kind of run her through the studio? She like goes in through that little like turnstile.
She like
And then-
has her like scrapbook. She's like, I brought my life scrapbook. They're like, okay. And then she ends up like going through this building, talking to people. They send her to the next room. She talks to them. They send her to the next
Yeah.
room. And eventually she's just like outside.
Yeah, she gets shouted at for being in the way of a shot. She meets like the
Yeah.
president who's like watching a movie. He's like, get her the fuck out of here. She's standing in front of the projector like a fucking idiot.
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
It's a
But
great
definitely like a comedy
scene.
setup, right?
Yeah, it's great. And then she's like out the door and she's like, fuck, this is.
And then tries to go back in, but the like revolving door gets stuck. And she
Gets
in the revolving
stuck.
door.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. So now she has her film debut. This is the really
Yes.
long, the first like really
The
long.
Boy in the Trunk, I believe it's called.
The Boy in the Trunk. Yeah. So it's her story of like, or it's her story, but it's not her story, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's the story of like coming up from small town and like becoming a big star because you worked hard and got rejected, and eventually like people started to like you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like extended scene because it's like this movie basically.
Yeah, because it's her movie premiere, but we actually get to watch it, and it's so fucking
Yeah,
long.
it's like real long about how she's from Idaho or whatever. Okay, here's some. So she has a wig on in this. Now I'm not super familiar with Judy Garland generally, but
Yes.
I've watched Arrested Development, as
Sure.
have you.
Minnelli.
Often together. Liza Minnelli, who's Judy Garland's daughter, is in that.
Yes.
And she, with that short wig on, they look so similar, and they sound similar too. Like they sing similar. They're very
Yeah,
similar in
yeah.
many ways. So it's
they
very
are
novel.
certainly family. That is novel. I just like the problem with this movie for me. I just zoned the fuck out every time a music number.
Yeah,
was
there
going
were
on.
definitely times. I mean, some of them were longer.
And this
big
one had like
ones-
4 false endings, along with the one she does for Norman later. That I just tuned me. And then it was like intermission, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch the rest of this movie another day because that took it out of me. That took the wind out of my
No,
sails.
yeah, I mean that's right in the middle. That's like an hour and a half in too. So like that's a movie.
Yeah.
Also,
it was a double feature at the theater, and like Norman's like, oh, my film's playing first, so they'll hate it, and then you can be the star in your film.
right.
That's like what he tells her, and then
So of course, yeah, that's our turning point where she starts to become a star. People start to talk about her, and
Yeah.
again, they get married. There's no weird honeymoon scene.
Yeah, the marriage, no weird honeymoon scene. Marriage announcement to getting married is pretty much beat for beat. The proposal's a little bizarre, though.
Okay. Oh, yes. Okay.
So what happens is he visits her on set. She comes by to talk. One of the directors, one of the sound guys is like, "Hey, put a boom mic over, over them talking there."
Yeah.
They somehow don't notice it. We don't really get to hear the conversation, and then they like walk back and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna play back this take." And then we hear the conversation, and he's like, "Will you marry me?" And she's like, "No, you're drunk." And then after they listen to the whole thing, she's like, "Oh, well, now I have to say yes."
Yeah. And like everyone's there listening, like gathered around watching them.
Yeah, so she gets peer pressured into accepting a marriage.
They get married.
Why does the judge always get to kiss her in the marriage thing?
Man, it's the 50s. I don't know.
He's like, "Well, I get to exercise my right," and then he just fucking tongue blasts her. No, I'm kidding. He just kisses her.
They have the house. He talks about building the house, I'm pretty sure, at some point. The house gets built. They have a house. They have a party at the house where they like show movies, which is like they got a projector, right? So it's huge.
With the Royal Canadian Air Forces.
Yeah. And then like at this time, Norman Maine kind of steals away and his manager is doing some
Oliver
work
Niles
or something. And he's like, "What are you working for?" And then at that point is when they have their discussion about dropping him.
Yeah, he's like, "We got to drop you, bro." And he's like, "Okay, sweet." And then from here on, it's like beat for beat. We get the kind of
second half
in the butler
very
scene.
very similar. There's a lot. Yeah,
yes,
much closer to the original.
Except then we get a number where Judy Garland gets to do some kind of racist caricatures.
A few of those. Yep. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, this is where another big musical number where they're sort of having a fun time. It's pretty cute. But yeah, she gets to do like her various accents and jump around a lot and dance on various tables and things.
Yeah, and then he again ends up by being like, "I need to drink," and she again does fucking nothing.
Yeah. So very similar from here. Once again, Oscar speech.
With that massive live broadcast screen. There's like a big ass fucking screen that's like showing the same way you'd see on a studio, like here's what's being projected to the world.
World.
Pretty cool. That's one of the great things about these, is just like the novelty of a movie that is about the film industry that is from like years ago, is you get to see all of these like classic like film setups because they do shots of them making a film in the film.
That's true.
Like, oh,
and
okay,
you got the big old cameras and stuff. Very cool.
Yeah. He needs. So what happened for me here is my library copy of the film was a bit scratched up.
Okay.
So he asks for a job in his like Oscar speech.
He does. He's like, can anyone give me a job?
And then it cut out, and I had to skip to the next scene to kind of progress things. So I don't know what happened after he asked for a job.
It's similar stuff. I think he hits her, but it's more obviously an accident.
Okay.
In this one, as I recall, and then of course she like cries and stuff. And that's pretty much it.
Okay. And then we catch her caked up in makeup for this weird Why the Long Face musical.
Yeah.
And she delivers the same speech that like initially is the one Norman overhears, where she's like, "Oh, when he's asleep, he looks like a baby, and oh my, it's quite stressful."
Right, but that's after the musical number, right? And she's talking to the manager.
It's like midway through the musical number somehow. Okay. She like goes out and finishes the tape.
Right. Well, she does a whole musical number.
Yes.
And then it's kind of about like being like smiling even when things aren't great. So I'm like, okay, I see how that fits in thematically with what's happening. And then they take a break, and then she talks to the manager at that point, and then she like kind of cries and breaks down and has to wipe a bunch of makeup off. And then they say, all right, now go for the close-ups. So they did the video, they did the wide shots of the number, and now they need the close-in shots.
The close-ups.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so from here we get your same beats. He disappears. We get the same sanatorium stuff, etc. That's all pretty much by
basically the same. Drunk driving. There's another court scene.
The Christmas church night court. Yep, night court's back. The next big thing is in this one, and this really changes the context a bit. I think she says the career without Norman is nothing, and that she'd give everything to have him be well. Which I think makes his noble sacrifice gesture, if we can call it that, killing himself, like much worse.
Right, because it's the same. Like, he's still robbing.
Yeah, not that it's good that he kills himself in any of these things. It's
Right.
tragic.
Right.
But, like, this makes it worse.
Because she explicitly said, like, I don't care about it. But he still thinks that she's got to go for the big one. Dream.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, it's him being like, listen, you got to go all the way. And if your love for me is going to put you out, I gotta get out of the picture.
Oh my gosh! I had another line I wrote down.
Yeah, what do you got?
When she's crying on the set, she says, "Love isn't enough. I thought it was," and I was like, "Oh,
oh yeah,
so sad.
That's a rough one."
Oh my gosh! And she says like, "I think I hate him sometimes." And I was like, "Oh, Judy, why?"
Judy, yeah, we get a little more. I think the relationship comes out a little stronger and real in this one,
and like it feels rougher too. It's very idyllic, even when he's like drinking a lot, even when they're like sad. Well, no, she gets pretty rough at the end, especially with that whale. But
yeah, that whale, which that same scene happens here too.
Yeah, it really feels more like Judy Garland, and I should say Esther, is blaming herself.
Yes. Yeah,
anyway.
So that comes out stronger. So instead of getting her grandma, she gets some random studio guy in this one who's like, "Listen here, you dame. Norman Maine wants you to go out there and perform your heart out. So you go out there and you give him what for, I tell you, good God."
That's not someone we know?
No, he's like a studio guy. He's not Oliver Niles, but he is like some other fucking guy.
Right.
And then kind of like same beat, so she goes to the backstage at that theater that they first met in. She sees the love heart, and then she goes out and she says, "Hello, everybody. This is Mrs. Norman Maine."
And that's it again.
That's it again.
Yeah.
That's your second time around.
There's Mr. Libby when he's chastising Norman. Gets to say the not with a bang but with a whimper line, I think.
That's right. I was like, is that from this? What the
hell? Which I don't remember where that's from, but it's not this.
It's not this. And then clocks him again.
Yeah, fights him. That's that one.
That's that one. Pros and cons for me real quick, Alex. Too long.
Very long.
Too musical.
Yeah, I liked some of the musical scenes because they're very, visually exciting, and like you get to see people like actually dancing. But it's that very much that like stage musical feeling.
Yeah.
There were some bits. I mean, it's very long, but like the boy in the trunk.
Yeah.
There's like some cool stuff in there where she's like going through doors into different like offices and stuff.
Like the visual appeal is very cool and wouldn't be out of place in like a sci-fi film. Like
but this is very like much like primary colors and like flat primary colors and like weird spaces where you can go through a door and kind of come out a different one.
Yeah, but like the musical like styling is so dated for me and just like
it's for sure dated. Yeah.
It just my brain could not be convinced that was entertainment.
Yeah. So
it was like somebody coming at me with a stick and hoop. I was like, I don't know what you want me to do with this.
Yeah. What? So I think one of the reasons I could handle it was I did like I watched part of it, made dinner, ate dinner, and then like finished it. So I did take a break.
Yeah, I did too. I took a day between it.
Yeah. Definitely like take some time on that intermission if you can. But if you like old stuff, it's an old stuff thing.
An old stuff, and I like improves on the relationship aspect, the love story aspect, but I think the next two versions are superior to that.
Yeah, let's talk about them. In fact, we should probably talk about them both at the same time.
I think we could do one at a time. I think we can knock this out here, Alex. Okay, 1976. We got directed by Frank Pearson, executive produced by Barbra Streisand, starring Barbra Streisand, and starring Chris Christopherson. Apparently, Frank Pearson fought with a lot of people on set, including Barbra Streisand. It was written by him, John Gregory Dunn, and Joan Didion. Dunn was a journalist for Time magazine. His wife, Joan Didion, is considered one of the pioneers of new journalism, along the likes of Hunter S. Thompson, which is kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
A lot of people were considered for this. They wanted Neil Diamond, Marlon Brando, Elvis Presley were all considered. Colonel Tom Parker kiboshed the deal for Elvis because he's got to have like $1 million and he got to be the top billing. And they weren't willing to do that. Neil Diamond was touring too much. This one grossed $80 million on a $6 million budget. So that was pretty good for the time there.
Yeah.
Second highest grossing film of the year. Critics liked it, thought it was too long. Soundtrack was number 1 in many countries. Evergreen, one of the songs on this, is the biggest hit of Streisand's career. Won the Grammy for best song to ever be in A Star Is Born.
Ever Be in A Star Is Born.
A lot of filming in Arizona in this. All the clothing in this is Streisand's own clothing. At least her clothing is.
Yes, I
Dress
did
everyone.
see that. It was I saw that in the credits.
Saw that in the credits.
Yeah.
Okay, so boom. Now we're at the version that is recognizable.
We're in music.
People.
We're talking about music now, finally.
We're talking about music.
I
Here
mean,
we are.
We're
music.
already. It was kind of a hybrid for the last one, and now we're in music. Definitely.
Music. And
No
so this
more
one
Hollywood.
and the next one start introducing us right with our Norman main character. Here he's
Yes.
John Norman Howard is his name. And he is they really cut straight to like, who is this guy? He is a alcoholic, a drug addict, and a musician. Boom, boom, boom. He does some coke delivered to him by his coke man Gary Busey.
Gary Busey is Coke Man. That happens a couple times.
The other thing they do in this one, they say fuck in this one. You can say
They
fuck
say
now. It's
fuck.
1976.
That's right. They say asshole. So he's late for a concert. The crowd is getting fucking wild.
And antsy. They're shouting things. Finally, he comes out, does a show, and it's fine, I guess.
He comes out and he's like, "Are you a figment of my imagination or am I on yours?"
Which is part of the song?
Which is part of the song.
'Cause he does
and
it again
also
later.
is a pretty sick line. Just
What
in
this one
general.
has, what
Yes.
isn't in the next one is, I get a feeling like he's kind of getting sick of playing the same songs. every night.
Yeah.
But that comes in a bit later, actually.
That comes in because, when he kills himself too, he pulls out he starts listening to this song that we hear at the beginning, and then he throws it out to listen to something different.
Mm-hmm.
He likes KFC. And this one we've got Barbara Streisand. She's already working as a musician. She works in the racially charged name The Oreos. It's her and two
Oreos.
black women.
Black women. So that's her group. She's much sassier.
Yes,
He's much creepier.
much creepier.
At least in a modern way.
I guess, yeah, I suppose so.
Because
He's like pretty rough in this one. You know, he comes off as like pretty mean often too.
Pretty mean and
Yeah.
very fucked up because he goes to a speakeasy where he's not allowed to drink. They don't have a liquor license. And he's like, "Babe, just look the other way. I'm gonna
okay, I
fucking
have
drink out
my
of this
own
bottle.
bottle,
It's
like-
okay, I got my own bottle."
And she's like, no, you can't drink that here. So then, it becomes a whole thing.
Yes.
And while Barbara Streisand's singing, so that's kind of when they meet. It's a little
Yeah, and she's like,
rougher.
"Listen, you're ruining my act." And he's like, "Fucking sorry."
Yeah.
And then he tame for a bit. Then this fan comes over and is like, "Hey, have some of my booze. Also, you should go up there and sing a song." And he's like, "No, this is the greatest singer I've ever seen in my life." It's love at first sight for John Norman here.
Of course.
And then he gets into a fist fight with this guy and wins because this Norman Maine, he doesn't fucking
throw
lose
a
in a
punch.
fist fight. He can throw a goddamn punch.
Yes. And then that's when they first meet.
That's when they first meet. He does the fishing boxing metaphor thing, but just fishing this time. And then they go to a concert.
His concert?
His concert. He's like, "Come to my show." And he
Right.
tries to
and
get
then
her
they
to come out and
take
sing.
a helicopter.
Yes.
Thing is, I mean, in this one, he's a like, instead of there being a studio or like managers, it's all his like entourage people now, right?
yeah, it's very like Elvis Presley inspired.
Yeah.
Having watched the film Elvis last year, it's like he's got that vibe with a bit of like a
And,
Jim
like,
Morrison
they're all
drug
just, like,
addict.
Enabling him and like doing things. And even later on, there's like things not getting done because he's expecting his entourage to just like take messages for him and stuff. And he's like, where
Yeah.
is everyone?
He's like, somebody answer the fucking phone.
Yeah.
Wildest thing though that happens at this concert, he tries to get her on stage. She's like, "No, I'm not going to do it."
So he's
And
like,
then-
all right, I'll steal
all right,
this motorcycle.
Yeah, he doesn't steal it. It's given to
Right,
him.
the guy gives it to him, and he rides the motorcycle around, rips some donuts
Yeah, rips it onto the
onto the
stage
stage.
and then
And
crashes it.
Someone says like, not again.
Yeah, like this isn't the first time he's gotten a motorcycle at a show.
Yeah.
It's so funny too because he like crashes and we kind of linger on the shot of the stage where everybody's like freaked out, and we see the guy who gave him the motorcycle fucking just jump off the stage like arms out, like he's gonna fucking fly to save him.
Oh man. Yeah. Wild scene. But then he like leaves her.
Yes, they
Like,
all
she
leave her.
gets
She gets fully
lost
abandoned.
and abandoned at this show and has to make her own way back. At some point, when does the radio show host Baby Jesus go? Baby Jesus.
So Baby Jesus, again, like
Jesus or Jesus?
you said, it's Jesus because he's Hispanic, but. So you like told me you'd watched this before, and you're like, this is when it starts to feel like a movie, and it's like, oh yeah, we got a movie here. So Baby Jesus shows up in a helicopter at John
Right.
Norman's house. John Norman shoots a gun at him.
Yeah, he does.
Which
like we got
then-
an exclusive interview or whatever, and he's like lounging by the pool and just like grabs a gun.
Yeah, and just starts firing at him. He's like, fuck you, John Norman. Flies out of there. He's like, I got to make it up to him. Gets a big case of Jack Daniels to take to Baby Jesus, Baby Jesus. And he's like, hey, man, let's forget about the whole thing. And he calls him an alcoholic on air. He's like, hey, John Norman's here, and he's an alcoholic, and he sucks. And so then he whips the case of whiskey at the glass and breaks it. And this upsets Baby Jesus more.
Even more. On his way out, though, he sees
Barbara Streisand.
and they're recording some like promo,
For like a cat
like,
food for
like
old
an
cats.
ad, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, for cat food, and like they can't do it because they keep laughing. So they're like,
she
taking a
like,
break.
Barbara Streisand keeps laughing. She costs her friends the job
Right,
here.
She does. And they're like, all right, fine, we won't do it then.
Yeah.
But they're like, it's okay. And then that's when he finds her again. And then he like
Yeah.
brings her back to his place.
Brings
at
her
that point,
back.
I think.
Yeah, and brings her back, and we have what I think is a very good like start of the romance moment. Is she's playing her little ditty, and she's like, "Well, maybe one day it'll be a song." She's like, "But nobody can sing to it," and he whips out some lyrics on the spot,
Yeah.
and so they connect
writing the
over their
song
passion of
together.
music. Yes, they write the song together, and then that leads to just peak horniness. Like they just fuck on some
absolutely.
cushions.
The bathtub scene?
Yeah, and then they go into the bathtub afterwards.
Yeah.
And like it's
It's
like,
a lot
so
of
the-
like, tasteful coverings.
yeah, a lot of tasteful covering. It feels like
Barbara Streisand.
Streisand is not wearing a top. She takes off her little Jedi gi and like starts going to town here.
Yeah, and that's her own Jedi gi. That's
That's hers. I was like, why is she dressed like Luke Skywalker? But hey,
Barbara Streisand.
for you. And so to me, like the feelings of intimacy, the feelings of like for lack of better words, like passion, horniness, are like peak in this film.
yeah. I mean, it's in like a very 70s way. Everything's very 70s. 'cause-
For sure, it was made
by
right in
necessity,
the middle of the
it's made in the
70s. But I think it's a good way. I think the love scene we get in the next one is not as good.
Oh, he also writes her name backwards in spray paint on the wall.
That is so fucking
Yeah.
impressive.
Like as they walk upstairs, he's like writing her name backwards. I mean, he's writing it forwards, but he writes it from the back.
Yeah,
ends
he
to the front.
writes it so that it displays forwards.
Yeah.
But he is writing in cursive with a spray can
backwards as he walks upstairs.
backwards in one stroke as
Yeah.
he walks upstairs.
So like,
Insane.
I wonder how much practice that took.
I know. I was like, how many shots? How many shots?
Like, all right, repaint the wall. Like,
we gotta wait a
Cover it
day
up.
now. Like,
Oh man.
yeah, unfucking real. So yeah, he does that, which is sort of like a setup for the Hollywood Square thing / the love heart.
Yeah,
It doesn't
very
really
similar.
play the same way, but
No,
it's
it comes in
similar.
like right at the end again, but just so she can be sad. To see it and remember that it happened.
Yeah. And she does makeup on him to make him look like a clown when they're in a bathtub.
Yes.
That's
So,
another-
very exciting scene.
and he's got beer cans for candle holders. Yeah, go ahead.
He's doing a show. It's like a charity show of
Yes.
some kind. Smaller audience, than these like huge music festivals he was playing before.
Mhm.
And then that's when he like convinces her to come out
Right.
on stage and sing her song.
Yeah, he's like, and that's because
Um,
we wrote the song together. Come on out here.
Yeah, impressively tight stage show for zero rehearsal.
Of course.
But that's part of the magic of these movies.
Is that the one where the Oreos come out too? Like he like had them in the wings.
Yeah, I think so.
Because she like starts
the other-
singing,
her-
and then
her
that
backup
comes to
singers.
yeah. So he had like contacted them beforehand too, and was like,
Yeah,
"Hey, listen,
so-
we'll get you on here."
I'm trying to remember the proposal. She proposes to him this time.
Yes, while they're driving, and then he stops the car, and then people are like honking. He's like, "Hey, shut up! We're
Oh
doing
yeah,
something
just
here."
in the middle of the road, like not even
Yeah.
doesn't even pull over, he just stops, and people are like,
She's
"What's
like, "I
this
want to
guy doing?"
marry you."
Yeah. They get married. You find his full name. I think it's the first time you hear his full name again.
Yeah.
It's not like
John Norman Howard.
Yeah, it's just John Norman Howard.
Then they go and he like has a ranch that he bought at some point.
Yeah, so they like honeymoon on this ranch. He's of course sworn
That he
to be
owns.
sober from here on, and that
Yeah.
he owns this. And it's just like stakes in the ground. She's like, "Well, where's the kitchen?" He's like, "Well, you're standing in it."
Right.
Oh, right. There's a whole thing where he's like, and where's the bedroom? And he's like, also right here. And she's like, that's ridiculous. So then there's a whole montage of them building this house.
Oh, she says
Okay.
that's ridiculous, and then they fuck in
Sure.
in
On the
the.
ground.
I think that's very important.
Right. Right. Very important. And then there's a whole montage of them building the house.
Yeah. Then they just build a house, just the two of them.
Yeah, just the two of them. He's like running all this
Machinery.
and they build the house.
And sure enough, the kitchen is, or the bed, like,
There's like a bed suspended above the kitchen.
above the kitchen. Yeah.
So
he had it in his head the whole
And
time.
let's just say that's an incredibly nice looking house.
yeah, I mean he's got the cash, you know?
It's got the cash.
And apparently also the ability to build it himself.
the skills.
So impressive.
Unreal.
There's
Horses?
yes.
They have
there are
horses because it's like a ranch.
and then
I mean, of course, at this point, she's had her performance. Her star is starting to take off, right?
Yeah.
Because you got to have that before they get married. And then she starts to, write more songs. There's a whole like interview scene. There's a whole montage of her performing, and she's touring. No, she's not touring. Is she touring?
It's very funny because the montage very much looks like it was all shot at the same place they did the first concert.
Yeah, the
at,
first
his
concert.
But she just comes out in different outfits.
Yeah.
It's it's
So she
different
does
places.
some shows. She puts out. They do some recording as well. I guess that's the
Yes.
other important thing because she's like trying to do some recording, and then he offers some like, oh, what if we did this? What if we? And like he helps with it.
Yeah,
to
and
produce,
he's like, you can use
basically.
my band, the Freeway? Speedway. No, they're called Speedway.
Yeah, they're
And then they
Speedway.
become Freeway later when they abandon him.
Yeah, when they abandon him because he goes to build this house and is gone for like months,
He's
and they're
gone
like,
for
"Well,
months,
let's do
yeah.
an album because he's supposed to do an album. Like he's got a contractually obligated album or something."
Right.
And that he's like not doing, and they're like, "Well, what if we just did an album? Because like Norman's not going to help."
Norman's not
John
gonna come.
Norman Howard. Yeah. Okay. So then, what happens next?
So yeah, so those things happen. Sorry, I like music started playing randomly out of Tidal and
Okay.
it threw me completely off.
So they
you're
do
right,
have
so
a
he's-
like phone answering scene, and he tries to like write a song because he's kind of in the dumps because his band.
Yeah,
At this point, his band's already left him, or
I
can't remember.
think he is writing this just because he is like getting kind of inspired by her. So they work together.
Right.
They really share like a passion of music here that really like
yeah,
bolsters their relationship. And then she's like out doing her thing, and I guess he's like, well, it's time for me to get on my shit, and starts writing this song, and he hits the recorder, and the phone's going off, and he's like, somebody
Right.
fucking answer that thing, and nobody's around to
right.
answer.
But his
it 'cause-
entourage has kind of abandoned him.
yeah, it has abandoned him. He's no longer the big deal, and so he lays down what will become like the final track, or the second last one, because she gets like 2 numbers out at the end here.
Yeah.
And so he tries to write the song, doesn't, and then takes
Just
he
writes it
takes
there.
all these
Yeah.
calls. We get the
Answers the
butler
phone.
scene.
She comes in, he's giving her the messages. He seems really sad.
Yeah,
He's always
very
sad in
sad.
the scene, but oh man, he's sad in this
Oh
one.
man, very sad in this one.
Very similar. He says he needs a drink. All that.
Needs a drink. Boom. Cut to the Grammys.
The
'Cause
Grammys.
It's not the It's not the Oscars anymore. It's the
Yeah.
Grammys, and he gives what is maybe like the most like good speech, like the most like he has a point. I was like, wow, he raises some good points here.
Okay,
Like,
which is remind me.
so he's like, you don't have to thank anyone. He's like, you don't have to thank me or these, because again, like a big part of the Norman main character is his belief in our Esther Blodgett character.
Right.
Who, worth noting, this one, people ask her. There's like interviews after her first performance, and they're like, "What are you gonna change your name?" And she's like, "No, why the fuck would I do that?"
Yeah.
Which is like a good callback. She stays Esther Blodgett for this. But yeah, he's like, you don't have to thank anyone. You made it here by the grace of your own incredible skills, which is like not 100% true, but I do like the idea of it where it's like you are good. And so you deserve to
Yeah,
thank
it's
yourself.
all
I do
you.
like a bit of that. So yeah, that happens. And then instead of the journalist scene where it's just like a call from an old journalist buddy who's like, "Hey buddy, can I get an interview?" Instead it's like some stone
Right.
woman who shows up in his pool.
She's just in his pool topless,
Yeah.
and then
She's trying to get an interview with with Vicky.
Yes.
I mean, Esther.
Esther. She's like, I'd do anything for an interview with Esther. And he's like, oh, shit. But he's also like, he's a self-destructive alcoholic.
Right.
No rehab of any kind in this one.
Nope, no rehab, just cheating.
Yeah. And so I wrote here, I've heard of high fidelity, but infidelity?
Oh.
You like that one?
And there's this whole
Scene, because Esther walks in on them. Gasp. She's upset.
Yeah.
And then this, reporter's like, oh, let me get my recorder. I'll ask you questions now.
All right, sick. Now let me ask you some questions.
She just then holds the mic out and is like, all right, speak.
Yeah, because she's clearly a little fucked up, the reporter. I don't think she's quite on top of anything. But also, what kind of interview is that where you're just like, here, start talking.
All right, what do you got for me?
What do you got for me? Say some words. It's revealed he couldn't get it up for this reporter anyhow, but obviously, it's still infidelity.
Yep.
And then they have a fight. He says, I love you. She says, I hate you. And then she's like, if you love me, you got to fight for me.
There's a line in there, and he's like that he repeats later, and
it's you can fuck up your life or whatever, but I won't let you fuck up mine.
Right, and he's like, good point.
Yes, and that
suicide.
That acts as the catalyst for him.
Yeah.
Killing himself.
Yeah, which in this one, I mean, it's it's a suicide, but it's suicide by drinking a lot and then driving fast.
Oh, you're drinking a beer. I don't know if he's drinking a lot.
I assumed it was a lot.
It's a 355 milliliter can. I think he just takes the one with him.
Okay, I guess if it's just the one, maybe not. Maybe
maybe
not.
But yeah,
it's or whatever. In the desert, and then there's just an extended scene of him just driving fast in the desert,
just ripping, yeah,
for a while. You already mentioned that he is playing his old song and takes it out and goes to listen to hers.
Yeah. This one. Fucking, I don't know. This one hit like a car crash, man. It was kind of because she wakes up before he takes off. He makes up a lie about going to pick up the Oliver Niles character from the airport, and he's just like, I'll be back real quick. And then she's like, I love you. He's like, I love you. And he's like, boom, I'm gonna go fucking drive a car too fast.
Yeah,
it was rough.
And then she goes and his body is there.
Yeah,
she identifies his body.
Yeah, that's the next, because we don't actually see the crash, we see the aftermath. She's like, he needs more blankets.
Yeah.
And she says she can't do it without him.
You gotta leave her.
And then they are like, no, you gotta do it. She has this very sad breakdown scene where they're clearing out his house, and somebody somehow knows how to turn on a a cassette player, but doesn't know how to stop it.
Playing his demo, or what he had recorded before that day that he answered the phones. That's where the one more look line is in his demo.
Yeah, because it's isn't it in the song?
Yeah, it's part of the song. Yeah. And then so she ends up finishing, presumably, and then singing the song.
Yes, and then she does. What happens is she finds the will to continue making music, because she writes that song with him after crying about it a bit. It's very sad. And then the final 10 minutes of this is just a close up on her face as she performs 2 tracks.
Yeah, the songs. It's a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, I think the love story kind of hits the strongest on this one. They're a bit flirtatious with each other. They're a little goofy. He is a little creepy, sure. But
I think it being modern definitely makes it feel more real, I guess. Just because it's, even I say modern, it's still old, but it feels modern, like a modern style of movie.
It's more recognizable.
Kind of like this.
And I think just the shift to the music industry and having that shared passion come through really makes it ties the two parts of the story together. Yeah.
Especially look at the first one. She's not even really a performer when they meet, right? She's like, I want to be an actor, but I've not acted in anything. I just
which also makes that one the most predatory, because she's literally a nobody, and he's like, hey, I'll have to get into the industry.
Yeah. As opposed to the other ones where he sees her perform and is like, you gotta get bigger.
Yeah. And you never really get the in the first 2, there's not a scene where they act together and suddenly they're overcome by their own scene, or people around them are like, oh my god, I didn't realize you were acting. There's no it was so good. Our shared love of acting has also brought us together. Whereas this one has that, where they're like, oh my god, we make such beautiful music together. And what is love if not beautiful music of life? it's better. It just works better with this format.
Yeah, it makes more sense and feels less like the stage play.
Less like a stage play. We almost take like a step back in terms of like mental health care, weirdly enough, because like he doesn't even try to get therapy or anything.
True. He feels rougher. I mean, there's one thing that, like early on, it happens in the 54 one as well, where like they meet and then she kind of like he's just being like rough and like drunk, and then she kind of has a line where she says like, "But he seemed nice," and it's like, well, wait a minute, like where did you get that from?
Yeah, there is a lot of that like early in this one too, where she's like, he's a drunk and he drove me home, and I for some reason told him to come by for breakfast tomorrow, and, and he did with a pizza. Yeah, he like sleeps outside her house in a car.
Right.
For
and
3 hours.
She says like, I'll make, what does she offer to make?
I'll make breakfast. I don't know if she offers a specific breakfast.
Sure she does. And then he's like, where's this? And she's like, I've never cooked.
Oh yeah, she's like, I've never cooked and I wasn't going to cook. He's like, I know, that's why I brought the pizza.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is a bit of like a mental unwellness on both their parts where I'm like, I don't know if you guys should be jumping into this, but you are.
But yeah, I mean, she's sassier, that's for sure.
She's sassier for sure. I like that. Yeah, she's got a bit more like the spine to her, a little more character. I think,
which makes more sense in a modern context. Let's see. There's one line. It's fairly early on before when he's like taking her to the concert. She says something like, "Maybe if you get a tambourine, I'll get to shake it." Which Yoko Ono reference? Maybe.
Maybe.
Also, Paul Williams worked on this. That's cool.
Hey, Paul Williams.
He's a guy who writes songs.
Hey, he is. Is that the guy who's the partner of what's her face here?
Barbara Streisand.
At the time? No, I'm thinking of a different guy. There's a different guy who was her partner during filming of this, and then got the rights to A Star Is Born, which was a bit of a hassle for Universal. Is it Universal who does the movie here? Whoever does the 2018 version. So let's move right into this 2018 version. It's going to be a long episode. It is
going to be a long episode.
It's a big undertaking. So a lot of rumors about a remake of Star Is Born as early as like the 90s, and they were like, oh, it's going to be Will Smith, it's going to be Jamie Foxx, it's going to be Oliver Stone, it's going to be Beyonce in this. The rumors are crazy. Paul Walker was considered for the leading role.
I mean, if they make it every like 20 years or so, or they were for a while, so it makes sense if they would start talking about it in the 90s.
In the 90s, Mariah Carey, Lauryn Hill, Alicia Keys were all considered. Christian Bale, Leo DiCaprio, Tom Cruise, Johnny Depp, J-Lo, Rihanna, Shakira, Janelle Monáe, Selena Gomez, Demi Lovato. Kesha was considered at one point. And Clint Eastwood was meant to direct this originally.
That would have been something else.
Clint Eastwood's A Star Is Born.
Clint Eastwood's A Star Is Born? I don't even know what that would be. I
don't know if I've seen any Clint Eastwood directed
I
pieces.
haven't either, but from what I hear, like based on my impression of him, it would have been very interesting, especially in 2018.
Yeah.
He would have played Jackson Maine. Or something. I don't know.
Jackson Maine, a racist war veteran, is also
who's also a country star singer. Music star with the voice of an angel. I don't know.
Yeah. So finally in 2015, they announced that Bradley Cooper's going to direct, and Beyonce's in talks. Bradley Cooper says, "I want Jack White to play the lead role."
Yeah. So I hear.
Doesn't eventually work out. It comes out that it's going to be Bradley Cooper starring alongside Lady Gaga. Of course, boom. This thing is so jam-packed full of like celebrities and names.
Yeah, well, I mean, we actually recognize them now. But it's not just jam-packed full of celebrities and names. It's jam-packed full of stuff. This is much more dense film than the other ones.
It's a dense film. It's thick like cake.
It's thick like cake. No, but really, there's things happening, and there's more subplots and more characters. Like Gary Busey's character in the 76 one, he comes up a couple times. There's one bit where there's a shot close up on Chris Christopherson's face, and then he just comes in from the side with a little spoonful of cocaine and shoves it in his nose. But he doesn't do a whole lot, other than be a roadie.
Yeah, he has lines and is kind of the closest thing to a manager that Chris Christopherson's main has.
Especially in the back half, he drops out. He doesn't do much at all.
Yeah, he's gone. It's bizarre.
But in this one, there's just so much more stuff. I really feel in the 2018 version, it's a film made for the internet age compared to the other ones. They try to explain everything. I feel they were like, okay, everyone's gonna pick this apart and find plot holes or whatever, so we need to like explain as much stuff as we can. So like there's things like even their initial romance, you know? Like, why would she do this with this random guy? Oh, well, she just got dumped, so maybe it's a bit of a rebound thing, you know? Kind of that sort of thing. Why does the roadie care about him so much? Oh, it's actually his brother. Like, why is he depressed? Oh, well, he has issues with his father, you know, that kind of stuff. He's attempted suicide before, kind of stuff.
Also, like, an advancement in how we understand mental illness in the year 2018.
That's true. These
like,
aren't complaints. These are just observations about like there's more stuff going on, you know, and then like why this happened, well, because of this, you know. There's a lot more of that.
Yeah, there is a lot more of that. So there is like a more rich background tapestry here. Some details are like insane and like almost didn't come through, or like were muddled because they're like, yes,
everything totally works.
Lady Gaga's father, Andrew Dice Clay, is a driver, and also like
he could have been a crooner.
It could have been a crooner, and he bets on horse races in Japan with his other driver friends who also live in this house. With it's like very like,
or like muddled. They just meet there before work or something.
Yeah, or something. It's very strange.
Yeah. So similar story. It starts with a performance, but unlike said the 76 version, he's not like late or anything.
Yeah, he's like on top of his game. We see like kind of the efficiency of his drug habit here. He pops a pill, downs it with whiskey, boom.
Right. Yeah,
plays
pills, baby.
Song.
We're at pills. It's not coke
pills.
Anymore.
Yeah, coke.
It's a little bit, but pills.
There will be snorting of pills after he smashes them with a fucking boot.
Yep, with his boot. Yep, that does happen.
Insane.
But it's also like kind of more personal because like everyone's sort of doing coke together, and like Gary Busey gives it to him directly, things like that. Whereas this is like he's doing his, you know, he's got some pills. He takes pills.
Yeah, a little more isolated.
Yeah.
So yeah, he does the show, hops into fucking Matt Parkman's limousine.
Yep.
The detective from Heroes. And we see that he's both a personal guy. He remembers his driver's kid. He's like, how old's that little rascal now? And he's like, oh, he's like a 17 or something. He's like 13, 17, something like. He's like, oh crap, shot right out of the ground there.
He
downs like a full bottle of Jack Daniels in this time. He's like, we gotta fucking get some more booze here, Parkman. Parkman's just fucking looking for the cheerleader. He's like,
it's like, I gotta save the world. I gotta save the cheerleader. He's coming off like comparing Chris Christopherson and Bradley Cooper's versions of the character. It's so much. He comes off more like jolly but confused. At least at the start of this one, compared to Chris Christopherson, who's like an asshole.
Yeah, like, for sure. Because Cooper's too likable for that, like just in general. But they really do play that, jolly confused. Like the advancements.
And he can be mean. There's definitely ways that he is mean for sure. But like he comes across more jolly, especially early on. It's not like he's not being belligerent in the same way. Like when he goes into this bar. Well, it's not like in the 70s one where they're like, we can't serve you alcohol and like you can't drink the alcohol here.
Yeah.
And he's like fights a guy. In fact, he doesn't fight anyone at all. He doesn't punch anyone.
No, Lady Gaga punches a cop.
She punches a cop because they do. Okay, we're missing a few steps, but she does punch a cop.
A few steps here. We're talking broad strokes here, but yeah, I think like what you're kind of getting at. This is the most accurate like alcoholic acting we get, both in terms of just his general performance and like the story beats they make him go through.
Mm-hmm.
It's so you get that that cruelty, that meanness that is hidden behind there a little later. You get this sort of jolly confused, just like even the way he's talking in these opening scenes. It's like, I have talked like that as somebody who's been drunk frequently. Like you've heard drunk people talk like
it's
that.
All slurring.
It's all slurring.
Not slurring, it's slurring.
No, it's slurring, and it's a little. It's just like a little fucked up. He goes, he's like, hey, there's a bar there. We see a shot of rainbows and a noose, which is a little bit of foreshadowing.
Oh, yep. Yeah,
and
it's drag bar, doing drag show.
It's drag bar, yeah. He goes in there. The guy's like, this isn't really your scene. He's like, my scene's anywhere where liquor is. I'm Jackson, Maine. Also, his name's Jackson, Maine now.
Yeah, and he's like hanging out with like the bouncer, like recognizes him and like brings him in and is like hanging out with him.
Yeah, the bouncer. Is he the bouncer? He's. I thought he was just. That's
I don't know. He's not really
Lady Gaga's friend from the restaurant or whatever she works at.
So is he like promoting? I don't know. He may have a role.
He might have just
I don't know.
Been at the entrance.
That's true.
That's Jackson, Maine. This is like almost the unbelievable part of this is like in 1976, having a universally recognized musician is like in some ways more believable than in 2018.
That's
I guess
true.
we're just meant to believe he is a superstar of that status. Like you and I would both know Miley Cyrus or Billy Ray Cyrus. Like these are household names. Both of them.
Both of them equally.
Right. So it's a drag bar. You get a bunch of drag queens from like literal drag queens. They pulled people from like who are known drag queens from the circuit, the scene. Because Greta was pointing them all out to me. She's like, "That's so and so. That's Butts Enormous or whatever." You know, they all got pun names.
Yep.
And he's there. He's like, "Well, okay." But they let Lady Gaga perform here. She does a French number. She gets up on the bar. She dances. They lock eyes. He comes back afterwards. And this is, again, great drunk acting. He's like, "Is your real hair? Is your real eyebrows? Can I pull it off?"
Yeah. She's like, yeah, okay.
Okay, yep, sure.
Yeah, he definitely, like, comes across, like, I said jolly and confused, but, like, not really very charming at this point.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
he's
a
just,
bit
like,
clumsy.
awkward and, like, confused.
Yeah, and then they give you the hit where he plays the drag queen's guitar. And they're like, "Do a number for me, sweetheart." He's like, "All right." And then he does his big country music number. Or his small one, rather. You know, it's nice.
And they're like, "Oh, he can also sing." Just like, because she just does her big number, too.
Yeah, and
La
she's
vie
like...
en rose.
La vie en rose. And she's like, "Let me get into my regular clothing." And then she like finally agrees to go for a drink with him.
Yeah.
She comes out. She's now wearing her classic meat dress. She's in regular clothing.
Classic Gaga meat dress. Street clothes.
Street clothes. She sees him perform the bit of the song. She's like, "Oh yeah, Jackson Maine, what a hunk." They go to an ex-cop bar where they play Jackson Maine tunes because country rock, yeehaw.
Yeehaw. Yep. The guy tried to get him to like sign something.
He tries to get a photo of him because he's like, "My ex-girlfriend left me for a guy she says looks just like you. I gotta take a
Help
picture."
me prove that he totally doesn't look anything like
Totally doesn't look like you. And then Lady Gaga's like, "You want a photo? You want a photo?" She clocks this cop. Good job.
Yep. And then they hang out in the parking lot, and that's when they write the song.
Yeah, because they go to get frozen peas for her hand. He also picks up some Cheetos for Matt
right.
Parkman.
Yeah, because he's thoughtful.
He is thoughtful, and then he gets a picture taken by the cashier who like sneaks in a photo, and you can tell Lady Gaga wants to fight her too.
Yeah. And they hang out in the parking lot with the peas on her hand, which they're icing. And then they're talking about her. You know, they're getting to know each other.
They get to know each other, and they basically write the hit song "Shallow" here in the parking lot.
She starts to like sing the line like about "Ain't it so hard being so hardcore."
And he's like, "Did you just write that right now?" And she's like,
"You just come up with that right now. You're a songwriter."
Yeah.
And then it cuts to like the morning, and she gets home late. Presumably, they finished the song together. Because there's more of the song the next time they sing it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like them meeting.
Well, I think what happens is that he finishes a bit of it. Because I think she's surprised that he takes her up to sing this song.
Okay.
So I think he takes that first verse she wrote and like he writes his little verses. Because then he tells her like, "Well, I'm going to go up and sing this thing and you can jump in." And then, I don't know, she probably had the chorus just deep inside of her. I don't feel like they sat in that parking lot and wrote the whole song out.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like, where did the words come from?
Come from the heart, Alex. Come on, grow up.
Okay, fine.
And we get the one last look at you line here. And the classic meme where he like says, "Hey, let me get one last look at you." And she does the nose thing because she's like, "I can't get a good job in the..."
Because of my nose.
Because of my nose.
Everyone hates my nose.
And she does this...
It's a largish nose. It's fine. It's a nose.
It's fine. I like a big
some
nose.
Noses are like that. Like whatever.
Noses are different sizes, but she does this thing where she runs her finger over.
Sorry. No, you finish.
Over the top of her face, she goes over her nose and down, and it's their fun little gesture together.
Barbara Streisand
and Lady Gaga, both known for having largish noses.
There it was. Yeah, it's required to play the role.
Yeah, it's part of the thing.
And then we cut to this rehearsal that he's doing for this concert that he has invited her to, and we find out that he's suffering from hearing issues.
Yeah.
He's also suffering from being related to Sam Elliott.
Yeah.
"Hey, brother, you gotta wear the hearing aid here so it'll be okay."
But he refuses because he says it'll like make him feel distant from the music.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Um,
And then we cut.
he has a concert. He convinces
he has a
her
concert.
to.
Yeah,
she doesn't
eventually.
want to. She sends Matt Parkman to get her. She doesn't
Yeah.
want to come. And then eventually, like, her boss makes her angry, and she's like, "Fuck it, let's go."
She's
Brings
like,
her friend.
"Fuck it, let's go." Yeah, her dad's like, "You should do it." All the gambling driver friends who were there are like, "You should fucking do it." And she's like, "No, I'm gonna go surf tables or whatever."
And finally, she goes. She's backstage at the show.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna call you out. You're gonna sing a song. We're gonna do a
This is
song."
something. She's like, "I don't want to do that." And he says, "All you got to do is trust me."
He also says, "You don't have to do it if you don't want to, but like, I'm gonna sing it, and if you come out, that'd be cool."
Is that what he actually says?
No, I don't remember what the line is.
I
Doesn't he
think
say
it's
something like that? He says, like, "I'm gonna sing it. You can come out."
Yeah, that's kind of what he says. Is
Yeah.
like a kind of push. It's not like don't have to come out there. He's like, "I'm gonna sing it, and if you're not gonna be there." And like, hey, he's most importantly, he says, "All you got to do is trust me." And she trusts him. She gets up there. She sings the song. If you heard the song, if you listened to us talk about it last week, you know what we're talking about here.
Yep.
Oh, and he does a little like nigging on himself. He's after the show. He's like, "Oh, we kind of just put it together quick. The tempo was a little off." He's downplaying it.
Yeah.
And then they go back to his hotel room. She does a little quick carny shower on her junk. She thinks she's about to get laid, and then
Right.
he's
But he's
passed
passed
out. And then Sam Elliott's like, "Yeah, he's not gonna wake up."
Yeah, which also is a scene that comes back a few times across the movies about him passing out. She's not
Passing
usually
out.
there, though.
So then we get their like love scene, which just happens like later in the night. He like wakes up,
Yeah.
and,
And they even do the bath thing, sort of.
yeah, they do. They do the bath thing exactly.
Was it exactly?
Oh, she puts makeup on him.
Oh, right, she
They're in the bath. Yeah, they
Oh, yeah, she
fucking
does
do
the
it.
eyebrows.
She does the eyebrows. So yeah, that's kind of beat for beat, except with more the questionable consent. I mean, he's an alcoholic, but he like passed out. I don't know, dog.
Yeah.
You try. Yeah, it works. They do it. Which one of them says they usually write on a typewriter? That was a real eye roller for me.
She says that, yeah.
Ugh.
She's like, that was early on. She's like, "I usually use my typewriter." I'm like, did we see that in the background of the show?
I see that. A motorcycle returns in this one because he comes to her house on a motorcycle. I thought for sure he was going to die on a motorcycle in this one. 'Cause
I
he's
thought
like,
so too.
I will not get on that thing when you're drunk. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, yeah, okay.
And supposedly the script was originally that he was going to drown, like in the original.
Yeah, because he was going to do a sick jump off his motorcycle into
But
the
like,
ocean.
there's also a moment to jump way to the end of the film.
Yeah.
He's about to get in his truck or whatever, or he like
Yes.
throws some stuff
He
in his
gets
truck,
in the truck, yeah.
and then he like gets out, and then like the middle of the shot is the motorcycle. I'm like, he's gonna get on that motorcycle.
I know, I was like, he's
Fucking
going to
die.
And then it even took me a second. So might as well talk. I'm like, why is he taking his pants off?
Yeah.
His belt's in his hand. And I was like,
Which, of
oh,
course, at some
oh,
point in the
no.
movie, we learn he attempted suicide by hanging when he was
By hanging on a
very young.
ceiling fan.
What else in this movie? Sam Elliott's his brother, and also sold owned
Sold
a
the
farm?
ranch.
Sold the ranch.
Yeah, the farm.
So there is no ranch because Sam Elliott sold it, and he was like, "You didn't, you weren't gonna."
Yeah, you dirty baby. He punched you. He's like, I told you, but you were drunk. You stole my voice.
And then he goes to work for Willie Nelson, I think.
Yeah, he goes to work for Willie Nelson.
So that's cool. Dave Chappelle is in this movie as well. He goes to see his old friend Dave Chappelle.
Yeah,
Not playing himself.
Gaga starts touring
Right.
with
There's
Bradley
more.
Cooper. Then she gets a gig with Interscope, or a contract with Interscope.
Right.
Interscope agent approaches her afterwards. Interscope is actually the record label who produced the single "Shallow" and maybe the whole album, the soundtrack for this film as well. I don't know, but hey, that's neat. This is a weird scene where she tells him, and he like falls over, and then he does this thing. She's like, "Are you jealous? Are you jealous?" And he does this thing where he wipes a donut on her nose.
Right.
And then over her face. To me, initially, it read that he was happy and in his own drunken way being like, this didn't stop you. Like, the nose did not get in the way like you said it would, and that was why he cream donutted the nose.
Yeah, that was such a weird scene. I was just like, what's going on? But
Yeah.
then he says, like, "I'm super happy for you," or whatever.
Yeah, also, she's like so numb to his alcoholism already. He like straight up falls down, and people are
Yeah.
like, oh my God. And she's like, he does this, it's fine. So yeah, it gets a bit grim. This one like is very grim in a lot of ways.
I
We get some of
mean,
the ugliest fights in this. We get
Yeah.
the grimmest portrayal
And
of
the least
alcoholism.
like they try to throw some comedy into the other ones, lighten it
yeah,
up a
this
bit.
one is
This
pretty
one is
straight.
not really, no. So and then her career starts to take off. There's a bit here that I thought was a little confused because like there's a whole bit where like the producer's trying to get her like dancers and they're like showing her how to dance and stuff to be like a pop star.
Yes.
And then there's kind of a bit where he says something like be true to yourself or that kind of thing or like
he's like they're listening to you because you have a fucking message. And this is the thing he said to Sam Elliott. He's like, you stole my voice. He's like, you don't have anything to fucking say with it.
Yeah.
And that's like part of like the Jackson Maine like philosophy is it's not just about being a performer, it's about having a message.
Right. Which I mean lots of artists say that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But then I'm trying to figure out what the film's position is on some of this because like she goes on SNL and like performs her thing. Well, actually, at first she does a performance.
SNL hosted by Alec Baldwin.
Hosted by Alec Baldwin, yeah. I'm getting ahead of it because she does a performance first, and then she like kind of ditches the backup dancers. So it almost feels she's like kind of trying to like do things her own way. But then later on, she's on SNL. She's got all the backup dancers and everything's fine. And like she's fine with it, and like that's fine. She's kind of getting
run by the Interscope guy.
Yeah, but that never really becomes an issue. So I was a little because like even if that's the case, and then he kind of suggests that is what's happening, and she's like leaving her integrity behind, which is a big fight later on. But there's never a moment where, or I feel like they don't address it. Am I wrong? Did I miss it?
I think you're maybe wrong on this. So she does that thing. She takes the dancers off, and then the Interscope guy's like, "What the fuck happened out there? Where are the dancers?" And she's like, "Oh, I didn't think anything." He's like, "You listen to me. He's like, I'm calling the shots here. You have to trust me. You have to do what I say," which plays back to the previous
contrast
films.
That you just have to trust me, kind of,
but also plays back to the previous films where it's always been like the studio gets Esther Blodgett, who's Allie in this one.
Right.
And they're like, okay, we got to change her face up. We got to do all these things. We can't have her be her. And then Jackson Maine, John Norman Howard comes in and says, no. You, the good part about you is you. We can't let the industry get in the way of what's real here. And that's the same thing playing out here. So she starts listening to the Interscope guy because she's not making waves with him. And that gets her the gig on SNL with Alec Baldwin hosting.
Right.
And then she's doing this music that is, I'm imagining, suggested by Interscope. It's a fucking far cry from the song she writes initially in the film.
Yeah.
It's about a dude wearing tight jeans or something.
She's dancing. She's like, hey, boy, you got an ass like that? Or whatever.
Yeah. And it's what brings Bradley Cooper's character, brings Jackson Maine back to drinking.
Yeah, drives him back to drinking because of that. And I was trying to figure out, because it's not, I just feel like that makes him upset, but she's never like, and I don't like doing these songs.
I think she's like maybe struggling to find her way a bit.
Yeah, maybe.
I
feel like I didn't get that.
She comes back to do the big number at the end is Shallow again. She doesn't do, we never see that other number again.
That's true. But she still does a bunch of like pop idol stuff, which I mean she's Gaga, right? At this point,
yeah, she's Gaga. Well, she's
Gaga.
doing. She does some like dancing and stuff, but I think like we never really see the other music that comes from it. But
I don't know.
I thought it was addressed, but maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, so he starts going down the path of drinking.
Yep.
And he wakes up on Dave Chappelle's lawn.
Yep. Is that after his performance? Is the like Roy Orbison show?
No.
Okay,
No. That Roy Orbison show is pretty close to the end.
Okay.
So it's the record man cracks down on her. He drinks and wakes up on Dave Chappelle's lawn. Dave Chappelle's like, "Hey brother, it's me, your old friend Dave Chappelle. Noodles." And he's like, "Here, come in, have some food. We'll get you feeling better. I didn't think we'd do this so soon." I assume he's supposed to be like an old band member.
He said something like, "I known you since you were like this old," so definitely like an old friend that like he knew in childhood.
Old friend. He's got a bunch of guitars and stuff, and he's like, he talks about settling down and how that helped him a lot. And so this is where we get the wedding proposal. Bradley Cooper crafts a wedding ring out of a guitar string, which is pretty slick.
Right, that's the proposal. Cuts the string. He's like asking for pliers. Like, I need someone to cut this string.
Yeah, he's like, I need to cut this thing. So she says yes. They do the only actual church wedding in all of these films.
They get married in like the church that Dave Chappelle's family goes to.
Yeah. Yeah, and then
That's all before SNL.
That's all before
Going
SNL.
out of order. Oh my
That's
gosh.
fine. It's so then that's when he reconnects with Sam Elliott, Billy, and he's like, "Hey, you're working for Willie Nelson now," and he's like, "Maybe you can come back and work with me." He's like, "No, I don't want to do that, but call me if you need me for something."
Right.
And they're in the studio together, Maine and Allie. And then a little later they have their gnarly bathtub argument where he's like, "You've lost the fucking way. You're out there peddling that shit."
And she's like, "That's mean."
And they scream at each other. It was gnarly.
Yeah, because this is where he says some pretty hurtful stuff, very personally hurtful.
Yeah.
Some of the other ones is more.
And of course, this is after he does the butler stuff where he's like, "Here's all your fucking messages."
Yep.
And then so we get the Grammys in this one, and
oh yeah,
he is doing a performance for a Roy Orbison tribute,
right?
For the Grammys.
Yeah, and kind of the moment here is he finds out he gets asked to do this, and he finds out actually it's a big group, and he's just supposed to stay in the background and play guitar.
Yeah, exactly. And so he does that, and his tinnitus is increasing at this point, and it's weird. We don't know if he's going to make it through. And he does a really fucked up intro to the song. They're doing Pretty Woman. And he does just put so much sustain on these opening chords that people turn around and they're like, "Are you going to fucking play the song?"
Playing it? It's just, very distorted and heavy.
And this is him at his worst. He is he smashed the boot to snort the drugs. He is.
Because he does the intro and then he plays a bit more. You see him just playing along. They sing a bit, and then it cuts to the end. And he's like, "It's over."
Yeah, it's done.
He doesn't
and then
know
we
where
get just the roughest. So he finds her in the audience because he knew where to find her, and then she wins for best new artist
immediately after he finds her.
Yeah, and he comes up with her, and he's falling all over the place. Yeah. And she starts to do her speech, and he kind of echoes the 1976 speech, but he's too fucked up to actually project his voice. He's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna thank these people." He's
kind of doesn't totally know where he is, and is kind of just talking to her.
Yeah, because he gets up there eventually, and he's like, "Look, you're up on the screen."
Yeah, and she's trying to save it a bit. She's kind of "Hey, he's a goofy guy."
Oh, yeah, we've been having a lot of fun tonight. She's trying to save it, and then he pisses himself on stage.
Yep.
And good lord, it is stark.
Yeah, it's rough.
It's rough. He gets taken off, and then they throw him in rehab here. We get the backstory of him trying to hang himself when he was young. They have a very tender scene in the rehab facility where she's like, "Are you going to come back, after you're done here?" And he's like, "Of course I'll come back. What the hell?"
Because she's kind of "Well, we have always known each other. You've been drinking, so
yeah. Without
the drinks, you still care about me."
Yeah, it's truly this one has so much gut wrenching scenes thrown in the back end.
And sorry.
Yeah, no, it's because you get that, and then you get the Sam Elliott and Bradley Cooper in the car scene where he's like, "It was you, I idolized you, not my father." And you're like,
yeah. Ah! And it's also it's the first one where she actually visits him in rehab, right?
Right.
First two, it was just she sent the manager.
Good lord, I hope he's doing good well in rehab.
Yeah. The first time it shows it anyway.
Yeah.
And then...
And so the Interscope agent, after he has the tender "You Were My Idol" speech with
post rehab,
right? The agent comes by and he's like, "Listen, you're gonna fucking ruin that woman's career. There's no way you can go on tour with her. You're a piece of shit. I don't like you. And when you die, it's gonna be the greatest thing to ever happen." And it's like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, the publicists are just getting meaner.
Holy lord. And so then she comes in afterwards and lies to him. They both kind of lie to each other.
She says "Oh, I don't really want to go on tour. I need to record this other album."
Oh yeah, they said no. The album is doing so well that we don't want to tour yet. They just want me to come in and record another album. And he already knows that's a lie because the fucking agent just ripped him a new one. And so then he has he cooks a steak for the dog. They got a dog together at one point.
It's Bradley Cooper's real life dog, I think.
Damn.
Gives him a steak.
And then he goes. He's supposed to make it out to her big show, and we talked about this scene. He hangs himself.
Yeah.
It is
In the
fucking
garage.
rough.
Does not ride the bike.
No, which I thought he was gonna ride the bike. They played us like fools, Alex.
Yeah.
And then she does her like this is Miss Norman Maine thing. After a scene, we do get a funeral scene where it's her and Sam Elliott together.
Yeah, they're talking because it kind of makes sense to have them, right? Because then like they both share this loss in a different way, but now they can actually talk about it on a more equal level.
Yeah, and then he feeds her the like the Norman Maine, Jackson Maine really believed in you.
Yeah.
Line. He's like, music's just 12 notes and then the octave repeats. He really liked what you did with those 12 notes.
So she takes a song that he showed her he was writing in rehab and presumably finishes it and then performs it.
That's right. And so, yeah, when she's performing it, you get the cuts to them making the song together in rehab there. And that was a real tearjerker, I think. That was...
Also, that's the only time, because she goes as Allie for the entire...
That's right. And she says, like, this is Allie Maine or something.
Yeah. So that's interesting.
And, of course, before he goes to kill himself, he says, let me look at you one last time. And she does the nose thing again.
Yes, of course. Got to bring him back. Yeah.
Bring that back. So that's this one in a nutshell.
It is. One more thing I forgot to mention. So when I did like a thing they did. I guess now we can talk about it generally a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
With the way they played the music, like when his music would come on, it would be like so loud or like feel so loud.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's part of his problem is that he's got this tinnitus, but like he wants to keep playing this loud music. And he's got whatever issue, but he doesn't want to not feel the music kind of thing. So I thought they portrayed that very well sonically in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is a good point. I think this one is, maybe we should just get into our final verdicts here, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, what else is there to
Save
say?
a little time on this fat episode.
We talked about our general thoughts. We compared them a little bit. There's a lot of similarities and a lot of differences.
A lot of differences. But let's break this down, Alex. Worst version, I think it's got to be 1954. That's just, it's too bloated. The music numbers do nothing for me.
Oh, I don't know. Well, it's definitely either 37 or 54.
I give 37 the credit of being the first to do it.
Right? I know. It gets credit for that. I'm like, I like some things about 54. It's probably 54, but I don't know. I think it's all right.
All right, Alex. Well, let's move more positive. What's the best version of this?
I struggle with this. Because like the more I think about the 2018 one, the stronger it feels. It's got a lot going for it.
Yeah.
But I just really like the 70s aesthetic, and like there's some like batshit things that happen in that movie that you just like. It's more grounded in the 2018 version, and I can't leave my precious 70s behind. So I think I got to give it to that one. But
fair enough.
It's not an easy choice.
Yeah, I think I like a lot of the love story elements of 1976. I think that plays a lot better, and maybe, like you said, it was a really 70s in torniness. I think it's just like more loose how we were allowed to portray things back then, whereas now it's like, okay, here, let's hit the beats for love like this, boom, boom, boom. Like some things are a little more cookie cutter these days, maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, it had this density. Like there's so much. I mentioned all the things going on. There's even, I didn't mention, in the beginning, she's humming like Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Oh, yeah.
Which, is that hang on, is that from, what's that from?
That's from, isn't that like some big Hawaiian man?
Never mind. I have no idea. It's not what I thought it was. Okay, continue.
Yeah, no. Okay. But yeah, like you said, this density, and I think the strongest portrayal of like being in a relationship with somebody who suffers from mental health issues, like alcohol.
Yeah, that's a big strength of the
big strength, and like, and it's definitely the version that has lingered with me. It's also one I watched most recently, but it's like it's kind of just in the back of my head, and I'm like, it was pretty fucking heavy.
Yeah.
And me, I'm a Sam Elliott guy. Love Sam Elliott.
Sam Elliott's in it.
Yeah. Well,
I should have put him in the other one.
And Alec Baldwin's in it.
Alec Baldwin's in it as himself.
As himself, bro. Yeah, he would have. They could have fit Sam Elliott in the '76 one. He was around.
Could have been at least. In the background.
Yeah, and I think, like and even the musical numbers, I think the ones from the newest one stick the most. Like even the '76 ones.
Yeah, I definitely agree about about that. It's even like this, like they kind of spend too much time performing almost in the set.
Yeah,
Like
it
let's
is a
do this
bit,
whole
like,
number and then
indulgent.
another one. It's like, okay.
But yeah, I think that it like maybe it hits the strengths of what this film is supposed to be more. It really refines the 1976 one for better and worse. I think we lose a little bit of the rock and roll and the love relationship, a bit of the levity there, but we get such a strong portrayal of these characters.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't go wrong.
Can't go wrong. Weirdest version though, I'll give to 76 because there's just some batshit stuff that goes on in
Deserves
there.
it. No, there absolutely. You're probably right, but just to spread it out, I'll give it to 54, just because like there's
Also insane.
so many musical numbers, and like they're just doing musical number stuff and like pulling things out of whatever and throwing things around, and then it's like 20 minutes long.
Yeah, it's a wild ride. Both of those are wild rides.
Yeah, those. I mean, it's the cream of the Star is Born Oreo, really.
Yes, absolutely.
And you know how batshit cream is? No, that doesn't make any sense.
Batshit. I love my batshit cream.
Batshit cream.
That does it for our final verse. So if you got a similar opinion, different opinion, want to talk to us about a version we didn't talk about, like the Bollywood
yeah, there's
film?
a Bollywood one. I think a Tollywood one. Like there's made-for-TV ones. There's like episodes of shows that follow this plot. Like
Yeah, there's radio plays. Yeah, so
the
talk to us
radio
about
plays.
some of these other interpretations. If you want to talk to us just about how this episode was too damn long, you can do that too. Hit us up on Twitter. Hashtag CoverMePod, at Jake the Cressy, at some Alex
Did this
Wise
episode
Guy.
go long?
Send us your comments, questions, concerns, suggestions for future episodes. I believed we could do it. Even when we were at the hour and 15 mark, I was like, we'll do like 145.
I kind of did too. Yeah.
I believed in us, but here we are. We fucked it up. It's fine. Content's content, and I'm content with that. You can rate and review us. We're on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, your favorite podcasting app. Spotify's a dumpster, though. Use a different podcasting app. You can also email us at covermepod@gmail.com. Be sure to tell your friends, families, neighbors, and loved ones about us. If you're out there, you know, you're out there on the scene, just tell somebody. We were running so long, I don't have time to come up with it. This is the second episode we recorded today. Just tell people about us. And that does it for today's episode. And as we always say on Cover Me, do you mind if I take just one more Cover Me?